Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 8th Annual Nelsonville York Hall of Fame, Athletic Hall of Fame induction. We're so glad you're here with us this evening. It's about time to eat. We'll do that real quick, but we wanted to make a few introductions first. I just wanted to give you a little heads up about the Athletic Hall of Fame. As many of you know, since this is our 8th year, we do have a website. It's NYHSHOF, that's halloffame.com. And if you or any of your relatives or anyone wants to nominate someone, there's where our ballot is. And you can do that. We usually meet in April every year and go over the ballots and what have you. So if you know of anyone, if you want to nominate them, or if you know of anyone that wants to nominate someone, that's the place to go. And we ask that you do that. We're looking for more and more nominations as we go through the years. This committee is made up of a few of us, Nathan Dean, Whitney Maiden, Cheryl Nunley, Greg Jones, Jay Klein, Greg Warren, and myself. And we are glad that you're here this evening. We're inducting 10 people this evening. It's going to be a great night. We're going to talk a little more, but first we'll get to our food and what have you. But the first thing we want to do tonight, we lost one of our members over the last year, a valuable member of our community, and also a Hall of Fame member, Mr. Joe Edwards. And before we begin our evening, let's have a moment of silence for Joe Edwards, remembering all he's done for our community, if you will. Thank you. Thank you very much. You inductees, we are going to introduce you at the football game tomorrow night as we take on the Trimble Tomcats here at Boston Field. We ask that you be at the end zone closest to the school at around 6:20 tomorrow to line up for the introductions of our Hall of Fame members at the football game. If you're not going to be there for some reason, let Nathan or I know before the evening's over, but we are going to introduce you tomorrow night at the football game. So again, meet around 6:20 for that. I think I've gone through everything almost I need to go through. If you are a member, if you're just coming in, if you haven't been to our gym lately, that's where the Hall of Fame plaques are. That's where the Hall of Fame exists. And your plaque that is here with us this evening, it will be hung on the Hall of Fame wall down by Ben Wagner Gymnasium. You're welcome to take a look at it. We'll have that done by the time volleyball season's over and basketball season starts. That Hall of Fame is down there. You can also see all of our inductees on our website. It's a great interactive website, and you can see the bios of every Hall of Fame member on there. So check that out if you haven't. Again, NYHSHOF.com. I think you've heard enough from me already. I'm going to introduce right now the president and founder of our Nelsonville York Athletic Hall of Fame. He is Nathan Dean. Nathan.
Thank you, Steve. Again, like Steve said, my name is Nathan Dean, and I'm the president and historian of the Nelsonville York Athletic Hall of Fame. First, I want to thank you all for being here this evening and joining us to celebrate the induction of the class of 2024. Before we get started, like Steve said, he wanted to thank the committee members. He already ran through them, so I won't, but I just want to thank the committee again. This committee works hard. We push out the nominations in January, and we keep pushing as hard as we can. And then in June, we get together and we have some great conversations. There's many people that are deserving of being in the Hall of Fame, and it's really great to have the different minds of different eras come together and talk about Nelsonville York athletics and Nelsonville athletics. So thank you, committee members, as well. I'd also like to thank our school board president, Dr. Micah Covert, and our superintendent, Rick Edwards, for being here. And I'd like to thank Christy Poling and our amazing nutrition staff in the back for the delicious meal we're about to enjoy. Some of you may, I'm sorry, I need to cut that part out because we don't have programs yet. They're almost here. We do have a Nelsonville York website, like Steve said. One part of that website is you can make a monetary donation, and as you see, we have some tremendous awards and plaques and everything that goes into this night. You guys make this possible, so thank you so much again, and you are able to give a donation on the website. Now back to the class. Since we started this process, 8 classes have entered this prestigious group. Men and women, coaches, athletes, and contributors who have helped turn Nelsonville York athletics into what we see today. This year's class is a special one and has a graduating class range of 56 years. As we go throughout the program, I think there are a few words and phrases you'll hear over and over again. You'll hear about the great teammates and leaders that they all were and continue to be. You'll also hear about how tough both physically and mentally they are. But my favorite is hearing about how they made an impact on their teams and in their community. In my mind, without a doubt, this class embodies the motto of our athletic department: pride, tradition, excellence. We're extremely excited to have you all here tonight. Amongst this class, you will find 60 varsity letters earned, 57 years of coaching experience, 39 all-conference selections, 27 district and regional champions, 21 school records broken, 18 individual conference champions, 14 state qualifiers, 11 TVC championship teams, 8 High Point Awards, 5 TVC Players of the Year, 4 collegiate athletes, 1 member of the 1981 state championship team, 1 SEOAL Coach of the Year, a 1952 state runner-up in basketball, one of the brightest football minds in our area, and a man that built one of the best feeder programs in the state. Again, ladies and gentlemen, we're very excited to have you join us for our induction. Now let's get started. I'll turn it back over to Steve Cox.
Good job. Yeah, you done good. You done good. And right before we eat, I'd like to introduce for a few comments School Board President Micah Covert. Micah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Micah Covert, and I have the privilege of serving as the president of the Nelsonville York City Schools Board of Education. And I am a proud graduate of this school district. On behalf of the entire board, Superintendent Edwards and Treasurer Hurd, our administration, we'd like to welcome you all to our beautiful campus. A huge thanks to all the folks who put this night together. This young man had a dream, and a group of people in this community made it come true. Our Hall of Fame committee, who preciously donate their time and talents year after year, our own athletic department led by our AD, Jay Klein, our photographer from Roots Photography, DNR Studios, and of course, Christy Searles, our food service director with the nutrition group, because you're about to have a delicious meal tonight. Let's give all these people a very well-earned round of applause. Tonight we celebrate an incredibly talented group of individuals. I look around the room and I am in awe of your accomplishments both here at Nelsonville York and across your careers. In our celebration, we must also recognize that there are no small actors in this endeavor. Many people, too many to count really, work together to bring this energy and excitement to the Buckeye community. Our teachers, coaches, parents, families, siblings, fans, classmates, and without a doubt, our student athletes. Let me share a little bit about student athletes. Many studies continue to prove over and over again that student athletes perform statistically higher than non-athletes academically. And I recently read a study which in addition indicates that sport is actually a form of meditation. And in a society where students frequently have trouble calming their minds, there is power in the meditative state of sport. Sports also have the power to radically increase an athlete's compassion and empathy. Student athletes know themselves. They know their bodies, their emotions. They can fight through the pain and use this resilience to continue to push themselves. Push through yet another practice, or a play, or a long volley, or another 100 meters, and also push their brains to care for others and something bigger than themselves. All co-curricular or extracurricular activities have the power to make us better people. The individuals we honor tonight are some of the best people I've ever met. They not only cultivate pride, tradition, and excellence in their personal stories, they also used their talents to enhance the larger Nelsonville York community. They honor those members of the Buckeye family who came before them, as well as our current and future Buckeyes. You can hear some of them down the hallway. And they look to them as role models. They look to you, inductees, as role models. And as with all Nelsonville York alumni and former faculty and staff, our life's actions continually reflect this community. What may seem like small achievements in a singular form, something like getting a job, graduating high school, a healthy relationship, a family, a scholarship, a new school record, a championship, or the desire to come back and coach. When you take all of these achievements together, they have the power to transform a community. A community where, regardless of your talents and passions, you strive for excellence. That's the Nelsonville York community I know, and I pray this district continues to uplift kids in that way. Before I wrap up tonight, I have two asks for you. First, I would like us all to take 30 seconds and think about the person or persons in your life who helped you in your journey. The heroes who guided you as a student, who lifted you up when you were down, and perhaps even the person who first encouraged you to play your sport. You see, for many of us, as we grow and mature, we get so busy with our lives, we can forget how many souls planted those seeds of encouragement. If your heroes are still on this earth, I am asking you tonight, send them a text, call them, send a card, or say thank you in person. My second ask tonight, tell your friends, the people your age, you're proud of them. Tell your classmates, no matter how long it's been since you've seen them, tell them you are proud of them. We all play a part in building up a community. To the inductees and your families, I thank you for your time, for service to our community. And again, on behalf of the board and administration, my very heartfelt congratulations to these inductees and their families. Can I be honest for a minute? We're not going to remember the words spoken here tonight. I can tell you that's true because in the 8 years we've been doing this, I've only written 2 speeches. And what we will remember is this: a group of tremendously talented individuals gave it their all for their community, and in turn, their community is forever grateful. I thank you again for inspiring and honoring the future, past, and present generations of Buckeyes. And I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow evening on Boston Field. God bless you all, and go Buckeyes. Thank you.
I told Christy and her staff back there that she's one of the main reasons we keep this Hall of Fame going, because you will not eat a better meal than you're going to eat tonight. And it's time to do just that. We'll eat the meal here in about 20 to 25 minutes, maybe a half hour. We'll start our induction ceremony. But it's time to eat now. As true Buckeyes, let's see your speed. We'll go around that way. First Buckeye there gets first shrimp cocktail. Go to it, folks. A great start to our evening. Once again, let's give our kitchen staff a great hand for the meal they just served us. Wasn't that great? And as we go on here, we're going to get started here, but if you haven't eaten, if you haven't got dessert yet or what have you, you're welcome to go back and get anything you want during the ceremony. Like this year's class, like the last few years, this year's class of the Nelsonville York Hall of Fame is quite spread out. This year we go back to 1948 to grab one of our inductees, the furthest we've ever gone back. And we head up clear to the class of 2013 to grab another of this class of 10 individuals. We take in legendary Buckeye and Greyhound athletes, as well as one of the most respected coaches and principals in Southeast Ohio. Sadly, 4 of this year's inductees have passed on. But we remember and celebrate their contributions and achievements during their time with the schools that make up the Nelsonville York School District. I've never neglected during these 8 years to mention that I'm old enough to have watched, played alongside, coached, or been coached by every single inductee present. And this year, I'll add, I had one as my junior high principal. As always, if you inductees hear me say something about you that doesn't quite ring true, deal with it. As always, I make a lot of this up on the fly. We began this Hall of Fame back in 2017, and our inductees that year went in for their accomplishments in individual sports. We very quickly realized that Nelsonville York athletes are exactly that. They're athletes. And in most cases, they've represented our school and starred in multiple sports during their time with the Buckeyes. So while we may focus on one sport, we hope to bring all of your accomplishments up during your time in our school system and beyond. Each of you here tonight deserve to be in the Nelsonville York Athletic Hall of Fame. And when your name or the name of the inductee you're representing is called this evening, we would love for you to take a few minutes, give us a quick reflection on your time here at NY, what it meant to you, where you're at now and what you're up to, and of course, those you'd like to thank for making your induction tonight a reality. That being said, ladies and gentlemen, in no particular order, let's meet some of Nelsonville York's finest. The late Lowell Cole is not a graduate of Nelsonville York, Nelsonville High, Buchtel York, or any of the surrounding consolidated schools. But Lowell Cole did teach, coach, and was an administrator in the Nelsonville York system for many, many years. One of the most respected and universally loved members of our school district, he was instrumental in developing and leading some of the best athletes and teams in our area. A no-nonsense, by-the-book coach and administrator, he was also one of the kindest people you would ever meet. Lowell Cole began coaching at Nelsonville High School in 1948 as an assistant coach for the Greyhound football team. As an assistant on the gridiron, Coach Cole helped deliver top-notch instruction and provided leadership to every athlete under his command. After being an assistant coach for 6 years, Coach Cole was tasked with taking over the program as the head coach. And in 1954, his team fought hard, but struggled down the stretch, resulting in just a 3-win season. However, the next season, the team bought into Coach Cole's strategy and philosophy and had one of the best seasons in the history of Greyhound football, winning 4 games, losing 1, and tying 4 times. Lowell Cole's career record as a head coach in football: 7 wins, 7 losses, 4 ties. While being an assistant and head coach on the football field was everything in itself, Coach Cole's mark would be made on the basketball floor. Starting in 1948, Coach Cole began an 8-year stint as the head coach of the Greyhounds that would lead to 76 wins over that time. In the 1951-52 season, Coach Cole and his Greyhounds would go on a magical run, leading to a berth in the state championship game of the state tournament. The 1951-52 Greyhound basketball team is already in our Hall of Fame, and now their coach will join them individually. In that season, the Greyhounds went on a magical run through 26 games. A season that saw a 13-1 league record culminated in an SCOAL league championship, one of only 4 in the history of Nelsonville High School. A season that saw Coach Lowell be named the SCOAL Coach of the Year. A season that saw 22 total wins. A season that saw the team win the Class B District Championship, the Class B Regional Championship, and would end with the Greyhounds finishing up as the Class B state runner-ups. The state championship game may have been an exciting one for the Greyhounds, Coach Cole, and the Nelsonville community, but it was the semifinal game that lives on in the memory of those who were lucky enough to play and or attend that game. In the Final Four matchup, Coach Cole and the Greyhounds faced off against top-ranked and undefeated Waynesburg High School. Waynesburg was picked to win the state tournament that season, but Coach Cole and his plucky group of Greyhounds showed up and went on to defeat the Mohawks 45-43 to move on to the state championship. The magical year would end with a loss in the title game to Lachlan Wayne, but the accomplishments of that team and that coach would not soon be forgotten. Coach Cole's coaching career, while illustrious, came to an end when he became an administrator and principal in the Nelsonville and then Nelsonville York School system. As my junior high principal, I had the opportunity to sit in his office on a few occasions. In later years, as I started working banking on the public square, he would come in and he'd sit in mine. And I enjoyed those visits a lot more. The impact Coach Cole, Mr. Cole, made on the lives of so many athletes and students of our school system cannot be overstated. And the respect and admiration of the people in our area is well deserved. A Greyhound coaching legend.
He started coaching when I was going into 7th and 8th grade, and he was a really tough coach. You wanted to do everything for him.
He picked us up when we were 7th graders. He got us in there, and he was teaching us to block and how to catch, and he taught us a few plays and stuff like that. So he recognized our group, I think, very early on. We had a bunch of really good athletes.
We expected a lot from us, the athletes. And of course, we wanted to give our best for him. He was a tough disciplinarian, he was a good man. When you played for him, he demanded that you give him the best. You had to prove that you were a good athlete.
Mr. Cole always had a fire in his belly, as they used to say. He wanted to win, and he was always figuring out ways to win. He was always after you to do your best. He was always talking about how to do better.
I think he was a disciplinarian. And I think by being a disciplinarian, he taught you to stay in line, do what you're supposed to do, and do your best.
I guess the competitiveness. He always said, never think you can't win. Always look and assume that you're going to win. Play like you're going to win. He said the other team will notice that. He would challenge us individually what somebody else would do. And he was always talking about do your best, you could beat him. And he was always challenging us to do better. You could always do better. You could outrun him. You could catch the pass. Don't let him beat you. So we were always competing against each other.
He didn't mess around. He was a good coach. He was kind to you, but also very stern. He demanded a lot out of you, which I'm glad, because I think it helped me become a good athlete by always, doing my best in front of any coach that I ever played for.
He was always a very honorable man. He insisted that you never cheat. He said cheating will always hurt you more than it does the other guy. So he was always after us to be competitive, but to be honest and do our best and always respect the other team.
My biggest thing is I'm just really happy he's going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. He deserves it. Because I think if anybody ever played for him, he got the best out of him. He taught you what giving it all and self-discipline was. And so I think that's the kind of coach that he was. And I think when I became a coach, I wanted to try and mimic him.
He had a lot of personal characteristics that we all wanted to emulate. He was always the guy that did the right thing. He said, you got to do the right thing even if it hurts. And he was right about that. He made us all be better people around him. You were trying to be a better person.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present for induction into the Nelsonville York Athletic Hall of Fame, Coach Lowell Cole. Representing Coach this evening is his great-grandson, Coda Cole. Coda.
Thank you all for coming to the 2024 Nelsonville York Hall of Fame inauguration. I'm honored to be up here in place of Mr. Cole and accepting this award to be on his behalf. I am Miss Coda Cole, his great-grandson. I wish that he were here tonight along with his wife June, my Nana, and my grandparents, Sharon and Jerry Stuffelbein, who have unfortunately passed away. I wish that they were here tonight, but nonetheless, I am glad that he is getting this award. I know some of you may never had the pleasure of knowing Mr. Cole, but I surely wish that you had. He was a great man who loved his community, teaching young minds, but above all, he loved being a coach. I think the greatest accomplishment that he had in his life, besides having a family to love, was getting the Nelsonville York Greyhounds to the state championship. Even though they got second place, he was proud of the team and how far they had come along in the season. I've heard stories passed down through generations from friends, from families, and even strangers who have reached out to let me know and hear stories of my papa. He wanted every single person that he came into contact with to feel loved and supported. I felt like everyone knew him or of him. He even ran into people that he taught and coached in Europe when he traveled with my grandparents, and Texas when he and my Nana would go to visit to their grandkids.
True.
He had a great love for Nelsonville, Athens County, and I'm sure he would be happy to hear that people still hold stories about him close to their hearts, whether it be a lighthearted chat or deep conversation and some life memories that they still remember from years ago. I don't want to take up too much of your time, so I will leave you here with the story of my papa that was told through many generations that I've heard every Christmas. It is the story of the little red truck. One Christmas during the Great Depression, my great-great-grandfather, Everett Cole, was doing his best to be able to afford Christmas gifts. Papa's sister, Wanda and Edith, got a book and an orange, while my papa got a little red truck. He was roughly between 12 and 14 years of age and did not know what to do with the truck as he felt he was too old to play with his toy. Even though he felt this way, he played and played with his truck so he wouldn't disappoint his father. I never understood why this story was told every Christmas Eve by my papa and later down the road by my grandma, his daughter Sharon. Being 6 or 7 years old, along with my brothers and cousins, I just wanted to open gifts, not sit and listen to his story. Until I grew older and I realized it was more than just a story, but a life lesson. He was teaching us to be grateful and that anything life brings is a blessing. That is the lesson that he always tried to convey, whether it be tough teaching or coaching. Papa is missed dearly by so many, but would have been so honored and proud to be receiving this gift. Coach and the teacher was his life's work, along with being a family man and a wonderful great-grandfather with a deep love for the Lord.
And I don't know if anybody ever heard the story of his paddles, but I have one. So if you guys want to sign it, if you haven't signed it, he did catch a kid's pants on fire, spanking him. But a kid had matches in his pocket because he got smoking in the hallway. So, but this was one of his paddles, so I just wanted to bring it today. So, thank you very much.
I believe my autograph may be on that. I'd like to look at that after we're done. Jason Gail is a 1995 Nelsonville York graduate. While at Nelsonville York, Jason was known as one of the most menacing and dominant defensive players in our school's history. He was also a force on the basketball court. He garnered 7 varsity letters between 2 sports. On the court, Jason was a consistent presence underneath the team's basket. He was the big man. He had the skills of a guard. He led the basketball Buckeyes in rebounds in all 3 of his years on the varsity team. He was named All-TVC his junior and senior seasons, team captain his senior year, along with 3 3 all-district mentions. It was on the football field, though, where Gail would show his dominance. From early on, everyone could tell that Jason Gail was going to be a problem for most teams to deal with. He exploded onto the scene as a sophomore at defensive end where opposing tight ends and tackles could not stop him. He was also a key member of the offensive line, opening holes and paving the way for a fairly decent running back, his twin brother and Hall of Fame member Justin, here with us this evening. And his dad Kurt's back there too. He's in the Hall of Fame also. It's kind of a family affair tonight. He had the speed, size, and strength to outmaneuver or manhandle most anyone who stood in his way. In his sophomore year alone, he set the record for most sacks in a game with 6 against Belpre. He also finished that contest with 12 solo tackles, the 3rd most in school history. At the end of the 1992 season, Jason set the school record with 13 sacks on the year, a record that stood for over a decade and is now still the 3rd most in a season for our school. Gail followed his successful sophomore campaign with another solid and dominating performance as a junior, where he would again lead the team in sacks and had a game against Alexander where nobody could block him, collecting 3 sacks and 13 tackles in that game alone. At the end of his junior year, Jason was named first team All-TVC and was a special mention All-District selection. During his senior season, Jason would break the school sacks record with 23. That record would stand for over 2 decades and is still the 2nd most in school history. Throughout his career, Jason totaled 184 tackles, 84 of those solo, 23 sacks, 6 forced fumbles, 5 fumble recoveries, 2 pass breakups, and 1 very long interception return against Coshocton in the playoffs. By the end of the 1994 season, Gail was named TVC Ohio Defensive MVP, first team All-District, and special mention All-State. He was also named to the Nelsonville York High School football All-Decade team for the 1990s as a first-team defensive end and a second-team offensive tackle. Ladies and gentlemen, I present for induction into the Nelsonville York Hall of Fame, Jason Gail.
Me and Jason, we was almost like family. Our fathers created a bond when we was younger, and it carried right into our bond. We grew up on and off the field together.
He was an outstanding leader from the very first day that I took over. Even as a junior, he was a very good leader.
With Jason, he did whatever it took to make the team win. I mean, he's a winner. He's always been a winner, and that's what he did.
His senior year, he was no doubt the leader of that group. When something needed to be said, he would say it, and everybody listened and responded to him. His senior year, he could have been a good, outstanding fullback, outstanding tight end, but there was a need for him to play on the line. Very unselfish player. He played tackle for us, and that made all the difference in the world as we went through the year.
You know, we all know he was an all-star on defense, but he crushed some people on offense too.
We go into week 10, and we're 9-0, and we're playing Jackson. Jackson's 8-1 at Jackson. Jackson played an even front defense, and they had an absolute monster over what would be our guard. He was big and strong, and he was just running over people, causing havoc in other teams' backfields. So for that week, I moved Jason to guard, and Jason kicked that kid's butt, and he did an outstanding job for us that night.
He would not only take him out, then he would come back to the huddle laughing, and he was almost bigger than the game. It wasn't only a game to him for the team, but he wanted the crowd into it. Jason was definitely, you're going to be excited when you watch Jason Gail play. With him, it wasn't only when he made the big plays, because he made plenty of them. With Jason, he would be celebrating getting the crowd into it if anyone on the team made a big play.
There's a lot of guys that look the part. He had great size, but he also had outstanding speed. And a lot of teams would want to run away from him, and many times he chased the ball carrier down from behind. He continued to play well on the field. There's no question about that. He was even bigger and stronger and still had that great speed as a senior. But the big thing was his leadership.
He would study films. He would know guys. He would talk to people. He did whatever it took to make him be dominant on that side of the ball. He did whatever it took for the team to win. He just worked at it all the time. He was great at anything he did, and he really stood out when he was working for the football team. I can't describe him in one word, because he was the guy that he would knock you down and then pick you back up at the same time. And make a joke about it.
Jason was the leader of that group. He was the one that would get up in the meeting room and speak to the team, and everybody listened. He was a great leader for that 94 team. He was just so dominant, and teams would run away from him. But he could block him one-on-one. He was just too big and strong and athletic.
I can't imagine being a tight end on the other side. His looks alone, his size, his physique was intimidating enough. And then, you got that forearm coming across you, and it's a meat one.
I just want to congratulate him. It's definitely well-deserved, and I'm very happy for him.
Just love him like family. He's one of the best I've ever seen come through our school system. And that's not only as a football player, basketball player, whatever he played, but he was also there for the people. He's just great all the way around. He deserves all of it. He earned it. And I wish him, the best of luck in anything he does.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I present for induction into the Nelsonville York Athletic Hall of Fame, Mr. Jason Gail. Due to unforeseen circumstances, Jason is unable to be with us this evening, accepting his award, as award is his former coach and current athletic director, Mr. Jay Klein.
So, you think of the Gail name at Nelsonville York, and you think of football. One of the most dominant names in the history of Nelsonville York football, and Jason Gail was one of its most dominating defensive players that I ever saw play here at Nelsonville York. He had the greatest nickname that I ever saw here at Nelsonville York too, because everybody loved to say when he got a sack, "The moose is on the loose." And we had some great seasons. We had some great times during football season. I want to tell one story about his football career. Alexander had a 6'10", 300-pound player named Thomas Haskell. Thomas was better known for his basketball skills, but I ended up teaching with Thomas here at Nelsonville York, Big Tom, as we called him. And he told me a story about Jason Gail, and he said I was a sophomore and Jason was a senior and Alexander was playing Nelsonville York. Jason come up to the line the very first time, and he told Big Tom, he said, "Now, Big Tom," he said, "we can do this the easy way or we can do this the hard way." And Big Tom said, "I chose the easy way." So he was dominant. It was known that he was dominant. I saw one whole season where nearly nobody ran to his side for an entire year. But it wasn't only the football accomplishments that impressed me. And the one thing that impressed me more than anything else was his senior basketball season. His senior basketball season, I happened to take over after a couple games. Some adversity was happening at that time, but had a number of seniors on that team, maybe 5, I believe. But anyway, as the season progressed and as the season ended, there was only one senior that remained, and that was Jason Gail. He stood by me, he stood by our program, he stood by Nelsonville York basketball because he had pride and he had respect for, I would take it for myself at that time, even being a young man. But I really learned to appreciate his desire, the things that he was able to bring to a team, and perseverance even through adversity. Because I always say, adversity doesn't build character, it reveals character. And he showed great character that season, and he was my captain. So I'm very honored to accept this for what I feel is, again, one of the most dominant defensive players ever here at Nelsonville York, Jason Gail. Thank you very much.
The late Carl Moody is one of two Nelsonville York inductees tonight from the graduating class of 2012. Carl earned 7 varsity letters in his time here at Nelsonville York, 4 in wrestling, 2 in cross country, and 1 in track and field. While Carl was a key member of the Buckeye cross country and track and field team, it was on the wrestling mat where he made his mark. He burst onto the scene as a freshman and was a dominant force the first time he stepped onto the mat. Moody became one of the very few Nelsonville York freshman wrestlers to place in the state tournament, where he finished 8th in the 119-pound weight class, alongside teammate, classmate, and fellow Hall of Famer Thomas McLaughlin. Moody dealt with quite a few major injuries during his career, but as is typical in the wrestling world, he soldiered through them as best he could. In his sophomore season, he tore his meniscus halfway through the year, but finished out the regular season, continued on to the sectionals where he would place 2nd. That was the end of his season as the doctors shut him down before he could compete in the districts. In his junior year, Carl jumped back into the scene and continued to dominate the competition. He was sectional, district champion, moved on to the state meet where injuries would once again end his season. He broke his ankle in the state semifinals, losing a close match in the final seconds and finishing in 6th place in his 138-pound weight class. Going into his senior year, Carl and his team had gained a lot of notoriety, and the hype around the entire unit was felt throughout the state, as little Nelsonville York was touted as a contender for the state title. But the injustices of Moody's career showed themselves again as he dislocated his elbow midway through the season and was unable to compete in the state tournament that year, costing him a possible state championship and leaving his team short of the valuable points he would have garnered. Throughout his career, Carl Moody dealt with more than most athletes can imagine, but he persevered through it all and secured not only his own legacy, but his team's. He was a key member of the best wrestling teams to ever compete for the Buckeyes: 2010, 2011, 2012, sectional and district champions, and a state ranking as high as #1 during his senior year. Carl finished his career as a 2-time state qualifier, a 2-time state placer, a 2-time TVC champion, a 2-time district placer, and the 2011 district champion. He finished his career with a record of 130 wins and 23 losses, one of the finest wrestlers to ever take the mat for the Buckeyes.
So me and Carl really got close in 6th grade when we started wrestling together, and we just were partners, like wrestling partners, for majority of my time wrestling. He came over as a 6th grader, and he was just getting into the sport, but man, he absorbed it, every bit of it. Anything I was doing, he was more than willing to listen, to jump in, and to try to figure out. And he just absorbed the sport from the get-go, and his dad, Terry, was a huge supporter of him and made sure he got him into our room anytime he could get him over here. Me and Carl would always go in, drill, practice. If it was in season, we would be practice partners. And then if it was off season, we would usually be in the wrestling room, still practicing and trying to get better. I wrestled with Carl all the time, and he didn't ever want me to go easy on him. He wanted me to really roll with him and really scrap, and we really would, and it was great. Carl definitely challenged me and pushed me to grow as an athlete, because he just constantly was trying to get better. If anyone was going to explain Carl in a single word, it would be a competitor. It didn't matter what he was doing, he wanted to win. From video games to dodgeball to wrestling, whatever he was doing, if it was a competition, he was a competitor and he wanted to win.
He hated to lose at whatever it was. Honestly, I don't know that I've ever met a more competitive person. Carl was a huge factor with those teams, and then, from 9, 10, 11, and 12. That group was so close and so tight. And they've done all the right things for 5, 6 years with me.
He brought a intensity to the room which motivated people, but also pushed everyone else to try to reach that level of competitiveness. Carl's work ethic was very good. We would be in the room and he came in every day, and when you were going to wrestle Carl, it was going to be a match. It was going to be a brawl, and you just had to bring your A game. He came in every day ready to roll, ready to practice, and he beat a lot of people just because how mentally tough he was. The actual sheer dedication to winning pushed him very far and allowed him to succeed in a lot of ways.
Tremendous young man, tremendous wrestler. He would do anything I asked of him. He was going to do whatever it took to be good. It meant a ton to our program. He was one of those kids that I would tell him I appreciate just the leadership he had, the love and respect he had, not for just me, but my family. I mean, the kid was such a respectful kid. It was always, yes sir, no sir, coach.
Outside of just the competitive nature he had, he loved to have fun, and he could find a way to have fun almost anywhere. It was encouraging and very contagious, just the energy that he brought into everything, and just his desire to have fun in a lot of aspects in life. I would definitely thank him for being my wrestling partner for all those years and putting up with just the grind that wrestling is, and continuously pushing me to be better. I know Carl would be very, very proud of this. And I know him and his dad would both really enjoy this, and this would be a great moment to get to share with them, because I definitely wouldn't have been the wrestler that I was without him. And it's just great to see him be able to go into the Hall of Fame.
They would be on cloud 9 for this honor, and I know that it would mean the world to both of them. I mean, he's definitely one of the Buckeye great wrestlers of all time.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present for induction into the Nelsonville York Athletic Hall of Fame, the late Mr. Carl Moody. Accepting the award for Carl this evening, his mother, Mrs. Katrina Moody.
Well, I'm not a public speaker, so you guys will have to bear with me. I'll be probably reiterating a lot that everybody else has already said. But I'll begin. I just want to thank everyone for bestowing this honor upon my one and only son, Carl the Truth Moody. That was his nickname. I just wish he were here himself to receive it. I also wish his dad was still here to see it as well. He would have been so much better at giving the speech than me. He remembered everything. It was like an encyclopedia for all his wrestling matches move by move. But then we all know if he were up here, no one else would get a chance to speak. But on more about Carl's, I don't think there was a more dedicated athlete like everyone has been saying. When we transferred him here from Trimble in the 6th grade, that was his first year. So he was very green. He wanted to learn all that he could, so he didn't only go to practice with the grade school. He stayed for junior high school, went home, and he lifted weights. He was very determined to reach the top of his sport. He said he had an outstanding wrestling career here at Nelsonville. We all know that. He mentioned what his record was, but of course most of his losses were as results of a lot of those injuries. He also took great pride in never losing by pin in any of his matches ever in his career. Said he would rather be tech-falled before he ever took a pin. And like we said, as most of you know, his career was riddled by many injuries. Said in one, he was wrestling with a broken AC, and that is the match that he also dislocated his elbow in the opposite arm, so he won that match with no arms. And of course, we know the match in the state tournament when he broke his fibula. Said he was devastated because all he had talked about that year is wrestling Stieber. That's all he wanted to do. So we all cried a little bit on the inside for that, but he, in typical Carl style, he came back the next day, wrestled 2 matches with that broken leg, and obtaining his 6th place finish. And he was never a quitter, which is always something that I admired about him. So I know he would want me to thank his coaches that pushed him and encouraged him, and sometimes really made him mad. Said Coach Inger, both Coach McLaughlin's, Coach Shine, they all helped him and mold him into the athlete he became. Also, a big thanks to all his teammates and his friends for keeping the competition and camaraderie real. So too many here to name. You all know who you are. Now I just hope that I can watch his boy Jack, hopefully someday follow in his footsteps. So I know Carl and Terry will be rooting for him from up above in heaven. So thank you all.
The late Jerry Polley was an NY graduate from the class of 1969, the second graduating class of our consolidated schools. Prior to consolidation, he attended Nelsonville High School. In his time as a Buckeye, Jerry earned 6 varsity letters, 2 apiece in football, basketball, and track and field, and the same number as a Greyhound. He is the first ever in our Hall of Fame classes to perform both pre-consolidation and post-consolidation. Buchtel York High School and Nelsonville High School established or consolidated in 1967 to form the Nelsonville York School District. Jerry Polley was one of the first to don the brown and white. No orange back then. And he took the field as a Buckeye. The year prior, the backfield of Polley and Polley, Jerry and the legendary Richie, would lead the Greyhounds to a 5-4 record in their final season, one of their best records in years as a member of the SEOAL. Upon Richie's graduation and untimely death in Vietnam, Jerry became the lead back for the new school system and the first in a long line of storied Buckeye tailbacks. As a junior, Jerry led the entire SEOAL in rushing yards and was named first team All-SEOAL. That was followed up with the first team All-District selection and being named All-State, a very high honor as there were only 2 divisions in the state at that time. Going into Jerry's senior year with the Buckeyes, there were high expectations for the tall, strong, and fast tailback and his team. However, injuries hampered his season from the start and limited his action throughout the year. Fighting back through numerous injuries, Polley was still able to put on a show for the Buckeye fans when he was able to get on the field. He would leave a lasting impact on the Nelsonville York football program that season in limited action, setting a single-season record against Vinton County when he rushed for a total of 320 yards, including an 87-yard touchdown. Those 320 yards remained the most rushing yards in a game by any Buckeye ball carrier until 1994, when fellow Hall of Fame tailback Justin Gail finally broke that record. Polley's performance that night is still the 3rd most rushing yards in a game, and his 87-yard touchdown run remains the 5th longest TD in school history. At the end of his injury-marred season, Jerry still earned another All-SEOAL selection. He was also a member of the basketball team, For 2 years as a Buckeye, he was known for his physical style of play and his rebounding ability. He would lead the Buckeyes in that category both years. Some of his greatest accomplishments, though, came on the cinders for the Buckeyes. And if you were around back then, you know cinders was what I mean. No covering on the track. It was cinders back in that day. Jerry ran track both of his years as a Buckeye, and the strength, power, and speed he displayed on the gridiron was also evident on the track. Competing in the shot put, broad jump, high and low hurdles, along with anything else he was asked to do, he took home 9 first place, 9 second place, and 3 high point awards during his career. He would set the school record for the aforementioned shot put, broad jump, high hurdles, and low hurdles. And he holds a one-of-a-kind distinction in SEOAL and TVC annals. Nelsonville York High School, as I said, competed in the SEOAL until the fall of 1971. In 1969, NY had declared they were leaving the SEOAL for the better-suited Tri-Valley Conference. The founding TVC schools invited Nelsonville York to their first ever Tri-Valley Conference track and field meet in 1969, seeing as we would soon be part of their league. Nelsonville York accepted the invitation and joined in the competition with the other TVC teams. Jerry Polley competed that day in the shot put, the 180 low hurdles, the 120 high hurdles, and the long jump. He would end up winning the shot put, the 180 low hurdles, while taking second place in the 120 highs and the long jump, scoring a total of 20 points as an individual. Those 20 points were enough to make him the high point scorer in the first ever TVC league meet, a league we were not even a part of yet. So the first TVC high point scorer for track and field in TVC history was an SEOAL athlete. Jerry's accomplishments in track and field can still be felt today, as he remains in the top 10 in school history in shot put and the long jump.
Jerry was probably one of the most respected and beloved people in our class. Our class is just close-knit.
Yeah, that whole group, we all grew up together. We played ball from probably 6th grade on up together and played ball, forever.
He ran a lot. We all ran a lot. Like I said, we was a close-knit team. We'd run a mile and increase our speed by a second. He'd increase by 20 seconds. He was natural. His work ethic, yeah, he's a worker.
I mean, he was just one of the guys that, that played ball with all of us. He was always bigger than everybody else. Just massive, big. I mean, he just commanded a space wherever he was at.
Worked hard. He had that instilled in him. He worked. He was good to people. He'd been raised right.
Excellent football player, obviously. I only played basketball with him. He was fun to play with. You just knew if the ball went up, he was going to get his hands on it somehow. When he decided he wanted to rebound, he got it. And you better be out of the room. Whether it was their player or our player, he was going to get it. When he went down underneath the bucket or something, I mean, he was going to hold his space. Nobody was going to shove him out of the road.
That different class. He was a good athlete. Good people. He was a good leader. He'd get in your face.
He was vocal. Jerry he was always just cutting up, or he was just vocal. That's all. If he thought somebody was loafing or something, he'd holler at you. Say, hey, let's go. I need my help rebounding. I need help with this guy when he gets it down inside, or just whatever. I mean, but he talked.
He didn't brag about anything. We didn't know what was going on. We sat there playing ball. And we didn't know what accolades were and honors. But he's tough, and we all know it. And they changed the rules on blocking. I was playing split in. We was playing Benton County, and he went for about a 40-yard touchdown. They called it back because I did some kind of illegal block that was always illegal. So we ran the same play again. I did the same thing. So it ended up being, instead of, he got a 30-yard touchdown, it ended up being about a 60-yard touchdown because of 2 15-yard penalties. He was pissed off, but I thought, look at that yardage you got.
As big as he was, I mean, he was still fast. I mean, even though he was all muscle and everything else, he was still super fast. I always remember that. Jerry was bigger than life, I guess, type of player. You know, just he's always there. He basically was a leader on the floor. Always there, always, you know, he was the leader.
He meant everything to our class. He had a bunch of good people behind him back there. Jerry had a good time. He was a good athlete and played hard and natural.
Good, solid player. He worked hard, and like I say, he was a rebounding machine. They all got along well. He's just one of the guys.
Jerry Polley was a talented, dedicated athlete who was also a good team member. And through that, he developed into a good father and grandfather.
Just an all-around good guy. I mean, that's just the way he was.
He's friend to everybody. And I mean, I'm not even talking about the football team, just the class, everybody. When we was growing up with him, he's like part of my family. He called my dad Dad. In our class, he's probably the most respected and beloved guy there was.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present for induction into the Nelsonville York Athletic Hall of Fame, the late Mr. Jerry Polley. Representing Jerry this evening, his son, former NY graduate, Mr. Jeremy Polley.
Man, it's good to be home. Good to see some familiar faces. It's been a long time. I know my dad would want to acknowledge God first and thank him for the natural talents and gifts he had given him on the football field. Also, the significant people that played a role in his success on the field and off it in his life, starting with his mother, Caroline June Polley, his father, Tommy Tuck Polley, his sister, Sandra McLeod, who's with us tonight, as well as his other two sisters, Linda Stewart and Lois Ann Polley, and his big brother, Carl, who's also here tonight, and younger siblings, Tim and Terry, and also his beloved daughter, Noelle Sissy, who wrote this nomination for him. I know it would have meant the world to him. On behalf of my dad, I know he would have wanted to say how honored it is to be recognized along with such exceptional athletes, great company, and people tonight. He would fully appreciate the careful consideration that went into this decision by the committee, recognizing also the school board, the administrators, the coaches, the teachers, the players that all play into the historical, the present, and future success of Buckeye athletics. My dad grew up in Bone Hollow, and in that household, you're naturally going to be tough and have a strong identity. For those of you who knew my dad, he did not lack confidence, and he had a funny personality as well. One that myself, my wife Rachel, and my children had just so grown to love over the years. It was funny. My dad, every time he would visit, he would call me and say, "Hey, what are we having for dinner, Jeremy?" And if you know my dad, he was big on these fad diets. And this one time he called, he said, "Hey, what are we having for dinner?" I said, "I think we're going to go out and get some fish, Dad." He goes, "Now, Jeremy, you know I'm on a no-carb diet. That's no fries, no hush puppies, none of that." I go, "I think there's some healthy options you can choose, Dad. I'll look for some." A couple minutes later, I get a text. He says, "Hey, Jeremy, order me some extra hush puppies." or the time that he met his lovely wife and my mom for the first time and convinced her he was a backup singer for the Temptations. He did have a large personality, but one thing is for sure, he was tough. The toughness carried over to the football field and life. As a son, learning of all of these accomplishments was striking to me. To rush for over 320 yards and carry the ball 34 times in a game was a phenomenal feat, one that he and I would have attributed to the Lord. My dad was brought up in a family that revered the Lord. It was by no surprise his life on the football field played out scripturally. One scripture that I believe personifies this is Proverbs 18:16. A man's gifts make room for him and brings him before great men. Let me run that back. A man's gifts make room for him and bring him before great men. My dad had natural athletic ability. The size and strength that he brought was quite uncommon. God used that gift to make room for him on the high school playing field and also on the college playing field. And God, being true to his word, brought him before great men. Starting with Dave Boston Sr., whose name is synonymous with success and excellence with football here in southeastern Ohio. He's won over 160 wins, countless TVC titles, and a state championship here in 1981. Harold S. Deacon Duvall, who coached my dad at Fairmont State University, was there for 20 years. He compiled a record of 142 wins and 40-some losses. He also won in 1967 an NAIA national championship. My dad appreciated the opportunities afforded to him by these men and leveraged them for greater purposes in his life. These were two great men that excelled and achieved at the highest in their profession. Being a husband and a father to me and my sister, my dad excelled in that as well. He was encouraging and always helped us in pursuit of our academic and professional achievements. He took this toughness, this persistence, and that he derived from the game and these men, and he applied it off the football field. I will never forget when me, my sister, and my dad were at the James Cancer Hospital in Columbus, Ohio, and the doctor came in and shared with us that his cancer was terminal. He had days, months to live. Faced with his own mortality, he took the news with remarkable strength. He looked at me and my sister, and he said he had lived a great life, and he appreciated what he had lived, and he appreciated the two of us. I've never seen a moment in which such toughness and courage was displayed to me. The toughness and courage were curated by a loving God, his family, and lessons learned from two great coaches who made room for his gift. On behalf of my dad, thanks again for this incredible honor that has been bestowed upon him tonight. We congratulate all the inductees.
Caitlyn Breeze Moritz is one of two inductees tonight from the MY class of 2013. She earned 8 varsity letters in her time at Nelsonville York, 4 apiece in volleyball and track and field. She found her way into the starting volleyball unit as a freshman, showing a high volleyball IQ, a strong work ethic, and an uncanny ability to get off the floor quick and high, very high. As a sophomore, she was part of the 2010 sectional championship team and earned both a first-team All-TVC and a first-team All-District 13 selection. Her junior and senior year were more of the same. As she was a leading point scorer for the Buckeyes, she helped her team once again win the sectional championship in 2011 and capped it off by doing what no NY volleyball team had done before. The team went on to win the school's first district championship in program history. As a junior, Caitlyn was named first team All-TVC, first team All-District 13, and was the District 13 Player of the Year. Caitlyn continued to dominate on the court in her senior season, once again leading the Buckeyes to a sectional championship. She ended her senior campaign with her third first-team All-TVC selection, her third first-team All-District 13 selection, and entered a place on the All-State team. Caitlyn ended her Buckeye career with nearly 1,000 kills, 945 to be exact, 320 blocks, and by the time she graduated high school, she was named the 2012-2013 Athens Messenger Female Athlete of the Year. If you saw her dominate on the volleyball court, you probably realized two things. The girl could jump, and she was explosive. And that explosion she used in the gym, she transitioned it onto the track. As Caitlyn Breeze took down opponent after opponent in the 100 and 300 meter hurdles. She also exploded out of the gates in the 100 and 200 meter dash and normally led the pack to the finish line. She goes into our Hall of Fame as one of our most decorated athletes to run for the brown, white, and orange. As a freshman, Caitlyn would take steps in writing her legacy as she won numerous events throughout the year at different track meets. The freshman would take third in the TVC in the 100-meter hurdles, third in the 4x2 relay, third in the 4x4 relay, and fifth in the 4x100 relay. At the district meet, she finished sixth in the 100-meter hurdles. Those finishes set the stage for what was to come in the ensuing years. As a sophomore, Caitlyn put the Tri-Valley Conference on notice as she was the TVC champion in the 300-meter hurdles. That same meet, she would take second place in the 100-meter hurdles, third in the 200-meter dash, and fourth in the 4x1 relay. She would win the first of her 3 consecutive TVC High Point Awards that day. At districts, Caitlyn would become the district champion in the 300-meter hurdles, setting a new district record in the event and qualifying for the regional track meet, where she would finish 7th, just shy of reaching the state meet. That would not happen again. In her junior year, if you entered one of the events Caitlyn was competing in, you most likely were competing for second place. She was the TVC champion in the 100-meter dash, the 100-meter hurdles, the 200-meter dash, and the 300-meter hurdles, and was once again awarded the league's High Point Scorer Award. At districts that year, Caitlyn became the district champion in the 100-meter hurdles, 300-meter hurdles, and both the 4x1 and 4x4 relays. She was also named the 2012 District Athlete of the Year. At regionals, she continued her run at the top and became the regional champion in the 100-meter hurdles, qualifying her for the state meet. She also placed fourth in the 300-meter hurdles, qualifying her to compete in the state as well in that event. At the OHSAA state meet, Caitlyn ran against the best and fastest girls in the state, proving she was one of them, placing 6th overall. Her reign as queen of the track in Southeast Ohio continued into her senior year. She was once again the TVC champion in the 100-meter hurdles, 300-meter hurdles, and 200-meter dash, and for the 3rd straight year took home the TVC High Point Award. At districts, it was business as usual. Again, she took home the championship in the 100-meter and 200-meter dash and the 100 and 300-meter hurdles. For a 2nd straight season, she was named the District Athlete of the Year. At regionals, she once again qualified for the state meet in the 100-meter high hurdles, where she would again finish 6th, garnering her 2nd straight All-Ohio ranking. So putting a bow on all this, Caitlyn Breeze was a 9-time district champion, an 8-time TVC champion, a 3-time TVC High Point Award winner, a 3-time state qualifier, and a 2-time All-Ohioan. Pretty impressive on its own until I tell you she had surgery after her freshman volleyball season to correct the scoliosis she was born with. 2 titanium rods, 17 pins, an 8-hour surgery to fuse her spine, a little recovery time, and the legend that became Caitlyn Breeze would continue. Against doctor's recommendation, but that's kind of a family trait if you're familiar with the family. After her record-setting high school career, the Bobcats came calling, and Caitlyn continued her athletic career on the track at Ohio University.
Well, Tony Breeze and Steph approached me. I think she was either in the 7th or 8th grade. If I would just look at her and see if she had the potential to be a hurdler, and I said I'd be more than happy to do it. So we met. She did some approaches and various things, and after that, she did some hurdling. She looked like she was going to be a natural.
We both came to Nelsonville in 7th grade, and it was kind of a weird transition for both of us, but we were both into athletics, and it kind of made it easier going right into volleyball season. Caitlyn, right away in high school, she excelled in both volleyball and track. She meshed well with the varsity team. She just kind of went right into it and didn't have any issues.
The first thing I look for as a hurdler coach was if a girl or a boy, for that matter, could do a 3-step them. Because if you're 5-stepping hurdles, you're spending too much time on the ground. She looked like she had the potential to do that. I think the first day we tried it, she actually 3-stepped on what would be a short span between the hurdles, which told me that, once she learned how to stretch for the hurdle and get technique down, she could do 3 steps. She was just a natural at it.
If Caitlyn wasn't practicing or doing some sort of sport, I don't know what she would be doing. She was confident but not cocky. Caitlyn was somebody that you could count on the court. If we were down a couple points, we would set Caitlyn up, and she always seemed to be able to put the ball down, and she would just keep everything rolling. She was somebody that would tell you, you're not doing your best, but let's just try to make it work.
She was a very intelligent young lady, and she really did take coaching well. I could push her as hard as I thought I had to, and she always seemed to respond. I think we spent more time on the hurdles than anything else. I would just say she was dedicated to it. She just kept working at it and working at it and working at it. But she just had an excellent work ethic in anything she did. To the physical and the mental toughness that she seemed to exhibit all the time.
In between volleyball season and track season, Caitlyn had to have back surgery.
It was a big surgery, and so I don't think everybody would come back the way that she did, but she never let that hold her back.
Yep, that just shows you her toughness. Her mental toughness, too, because that's what it takes also. It's not just physical toughness, it's mental toughness to work through stuff like that. The other hurdles we looked at for her were the 300s, which is truly an endurance race because it's like running the 400 with obstacles in your way, and it requires even more timing than the 100-meter hurdles because sometimes you have to make adjustments as you're approaching a hurdle. I don't think I ever saw her give up in a race, even if someone was beating her, which didn't happen a whole lot. She was pretty much the cream of the crop in the Tri-Valley Conference anyway, as far as hurdling is concerned.
She's super courageous, and she's somebody that you could always look up to. She's a leader.
Well, she's well deserving of it, that's for sure. She was just a joy to work with. She did what she was asked to do, and seemed to do it in a good spirit all the time.
I would just like to tell Caitlyn that I'm super proud of her for this accomplishment, and that she's very deserving. If anybody from our class should get it, I truly think it would be her. She's worked hard for everything, and she's never settled for less than she deserves.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present for induction into the Nelsonville York Athletic Hall of Fame, Mrs. Caitlyn Breeze Moritz.
All right, you're going to have to bear with me because I haven't talked in front of this many people in quite some time. But thank you all so much for being here tonight. It feels so special being surrounded by not only so many great athletes, but great individuals as well. Come here, buddy. Come here. I was somewhat nervous to write a speech for tonight, thinking I might miss something or someone vitally important to my success as an athlete. As anyone with a 2.5-year-old knows, you don't get much time to think in peace, let alone about things that happened over 10 years ago, as you can see. But as I began writing, I realized that although the memories may not always stick with us in great detail, the values and life lessons we learn along the way are woven into our lives, whether we notice or not. Determination, grit, faith, and resilience are just a few of the values that come to mind that athletics have taught me. These values have truly impacted how I show up as a community member, family member, and most importantly, as a spouse and mother. For some people, sports may be about accolades and recognition, but to me, it's about the intangible things that we learn that we can pass down to the next generation. I'm grateful I've had so many special people in my life to instill these values in me and contribute to my growth as an athlete and an individual over the years. Gotta take a deep breath, sorry. To my parents, thank you for teaching me the true meaning of hard work, sacrifice, and commitment, for never missing a single sporting event, and for never allowing me to make excuses when things didn't go as planned. To my grandparents, most of you know my papa as the tough, rugged man he is, but I know a softer side of him. Thank you for loving me unconditionally and being a role model for not only me, but the community as well. And Mama, we all know you can't hit a ball or run a hurdle to save your life. But the confidence, strength, and just pure love that you have given me are worth 10 times more than any athletic ability. To all of my coaches, Coach Klein, Coach Watkins, Coach Duvall, thank you for believing in me when I had trouble believing in myself, for being a listening ear when I needed it, and pushing me to always be my best. And thanks for actually making me run at practice. I guess that kind of helped. Thank you to the Edwards family for opening up their home gym so I could train every night in the summers and off seasons, and to Jay Hook, who didn't give Alyssa and I the option of going every day. And to my husband, you weren't there in high school, but thank you now for allowing me to blossom into the person I am today. You inspire me to be better. I hope after tonight you can understand where my competitive nature comes from. There are truly so many others I could thank individually, but I'll keep it short by thanking the community of Nelsonville York Athletics. As I said before, the memories may fade over the years, but the impact sports and the people I've had the honor of being surrounded by will forever be ingrained in me. Thank you.
Our next inductee is one of two from the MY class of 2012. And without him, we would most likely not be here this evening. Tonight, we honor not just one of our own committee members, but the president, historian, and founder of the Nelsonville York Athletic Hall of Fame. His athletic accomplishments at NY stand alone as Hall of Fame worthy. His continued dedication and love for Nelsonville York after his playing days make him all the more so. While at Nelsonville York, Nathan Dean earned 4 varsity letters in baseball, 3 in football, and 1 in basketball. Today, in addition to establishing the Hall of Fame, Nathan is coach for the football Buckeyes, founded the Nelsonville York Athletic Alumni Association, created and maintains the Nelsonville York Football Record Book and website, and more importantly, teaches in our school system. While more of Nathan's accomplishments were seen on the football field, it was on the baseball diamond where he first got his first varsity action. Not a typical tucked-away freshman, Dean found his way into an immediate starting spot behind the plate and the number 2 slot in the Buckeye batting order. One of his most memorable performances came in Alexander, where he threw out the same stealing base runner 3 times before the game came to an end. Word got out around the TVC, and for the remainder of his career, steal attempts against the Buckeyes were very, very rare. After a solid freshman and sophomore campaign, mostly behind the plate, Nathan was called upon to man other positions of need for the Buckeyes, most notably on the pitcher's mound. As a junior, he struck out 31 batters and had a 3.1 ERA. He also batted cleanup in the batting order and held a .385 batting average. Notably, one of his best performances of the season and his career came in a first-round tournament game against the Wellston Golden Rockets, as he struck out 10 batters and gave up 1 earned run in the Buckeye win. His senior year was more of the same, as he, Casey Cox, and Dakota Hook developed a solid 3-man rotation for the Buckeyes. On the mound, he struck out 32 batters and had a 4.6 ERA that year. Again, batting cleanup for the Buckeyes, he held a .360 batting average, earned a first-team All-TVC and honorable mention All-District selection. For his career, Nathan struck out 63 batters, had a 4.4 ERA, and had a career batting average of .373. Enough to get you into the Hall of Fame right there. But there's more. On the diamond, he was known for his arm and knowledge of the game. Both attributes translate well to the quarterback position on the football field. The Dean family name is synonymous with quarterbacking in our school system. Grandfather Jim, Uncle Hayes, and Father Eric all filled the position during their time in our school systems. And Nathan learned the tricks of the trade from one of the best, his father. He became the Buckeye starting quarterback as a sophomore in his first ever varsity contest. He helped lead a 95-yard game-tying touchdown drive against rival Trimble, and would then go on to kick the game-winning extra point. I don't think any of the other Dean boys were kickers. I'm not sure where he got that from. As a junior, much more was expected from Nathan, and he had an entire season under his belt. He didn't disappoint. He went on to help NY to an 8-2 record, another TVC championship, and playoff berth. At the end of his junior year, he eclipsed 1,000 yards throwing. He eclipsed 1,000 yards, throwing for 1,300 yards and 13 TDs. At the time, his 13 passing touchdowns tied a school record for the most in school history. He was named first team All-TVC and special mention All-District at season's ends. For his senior season, expectations were high for Dean and his talented senior classmates. Leading into their final year, he would lead the Buckeyes to a 9-1 regular season and another playoff berth that season. By the end of that campaign, Nathan had thrown for over 2,000 yards, the first quarterback in school history to do so, and only the second to this day. His 2012 passing yards, 17 passing touchdowns, and 142 completions all broke school records, and his 69.2% completion percentage was far and away the best in Buckeye history, and remains so today. Completing 7 out of every 10 passes, Dean also set school records for touchdown passes in a game, attempted passes in a game, and completed passes in a game. Nathan Dean finished his career with 3,980 career passing yards, 27 touchdowns, 293 completions, and 506 attempts, all of which are second most in school history behind fellow Hall of Famer Ben Roby. His 59.2% career completion percentage was and still is the highest in school history. Nathan, as I said, also took on the kicking duties for the Buckeyes for 3 seasons. In that time, he tied the record for most field goals made in a game, had the second most field goals in a season, the third most made field goals in a career, and the second most extra points in a career. By the end of his senior season, Nathan was named first team All-TVC, first team All-District, and earned a special mention All-State selection. He was also selected to the 2010 NYHS Football All-Decade Team as a first-team quarterback and second-team kicker. Nathan went on to play football and baseball at Wilmington College, where his interest in stats, records, and Hall of Fame achievements grew even stronger. That interest became reality when in 2017, he brought a small group of people together and established an organization we represent here tonight, the Nelsonville York Athletic Hall of Fame. And since none of us know how to do it, we made him make his own highlight video tonight.
He knows to be a successful athlete, you have to have a solid work ethic in every aspect of your life. I think Nathan really lives that out. As we grew up, it was more than just playing a game for him too. He was, the sports he played, he wanted to almost be like a coach on the field. Like he wanted to learn the strategy, help make his teammates better. Nate was always finding ways to lead the rest of his team, right? He knew as the quarterback, the guy on the field that kind of ran everything and was the general, he knew the rest of the players would look toward him. So in the off season, that's when he really tried to earn the respect of everybody else. And he knew that playbook inside and out because he knew the rest of the team. They went as he went and they depended on him. He's always had the respect of his teammates, and that's just a testament to the type of person that he is. Sports are more than just a game. It's a way to bring people together, and I think Nate really honors that through what he does with the Hall of Fame and with the Alumni Association. He loves the history of the game and of our community of Nelsonville. He has spent a countless number of hours just collecting all these different football records and videos and just honoring people through the Hall of Fame and the Alumni Scholarship. With the things that Nathan loves, he really loves them, and he gives it his all to them. Like whether was playing football growing up or coaching football now, or being with his wife and his kid. He's just a person that loves wholly and loves fully and gives his all into things that he loves and cares for. And I think that's one of the things that I love the most about Nate. He's always the guy leading the charge of something, usually volunteering his time and his efforts to bring people together. I think Nate, if I had to describe him in one word, is passionate. He has a fullness for the things that he is about, whether that's his family, his community, football in general, his team, from the professional team that he roots for to the teams that he played on to the teams that he's coaching. He's all in and he's passionate, and they become a big part of his life. All those things do. Congratulations, buddy. Proud of you, happy for you. You deserve it. Can't wait to see what great things you do for Nelsonville York football and in our community in general. I know you're going to do great things.
When it comes to sports, he is a perfectionist. It's if he wasn't going to be good at it, he'd work harder and harder and harder. Football, it came easy to him. He worked hard in the off season. He hit the weight room. He had several throwing sessions. Did it for his team, and I think that's one of the main things is that he was a team player. He's always been a team player, and his team always came first. Just amazing. I mean, he had a great career. Outside of his records, I think the one thing that he will always remember is his teammates. He loved his teammates. During all of our careers, I'd call play, and he'd come back over, and it might have been meant for him to throw a pass, but he would come back over to the sideline to say, "Hey, give the ball to Dustin to the right side. There's no one in the 4-hole." I mean, he could just see so much on the football field, and it was just like having another coach. Extremely proud of him. He is truly a Nelsonville York fan, and he always will be.
I might say he was very reluctant to accept this honor, but we forced it on him. Ladies and gentlemen, I present for induction into the Nelsonville York Athletic Hall of Fame, Mr. Nathan Dean.
So I actually did the clips myself, but I made my wife call and do the interviews. I did not know that she got my dad in it, so I was good until that part. Thanks. Bear with me. Back in 2007, Ohio State and Florida were playing in the national championship. Urban Meyer was the coach of the Florida Gators at the time, and Jim Tressel was the coach of Ohio State. Urban Meyer gets up at media day and he starts talking and he thanks Florida and the university. He thanks the staff, everyone who works for Florida. He thanks his coaching staff, his players. And then he says a little bit about Ohio State and how he appreciated the opportunity to play against the team that he grew up watching and idolizing. So he sits down and then Jim Tressel gets up. And Jim Tressel goes, "Man, Urban, that was a great speech. Coach Tressel, I don't know if I can top it. But you did forget the most important thing. You have to introduce the CEO first." And then he went on to introduce his wife, Ellen Tressel. With that being said, I'd like to thank my wife, Abby. Without Abby, tonight would not get the recognition that it deserves. So being a coach's wife is very difficult. And if there are any coaches' wives in attendance, they know. You can ask them. The time away from your family, both in and out of season, can be a lot to deal with, and I found the person who understands that lifestyle perfectly, because she lives that lifestyle as well. Abby is a coach at Fairfield Union. She coaches softball, and she understands the dedication and time that it actually takes to be committed and put forth the best effort that you can for these kids. But again, the reason that I'm thanking her is not for being a coach's wife. It is for tonight, for the amount of time that I stay home to make phone calls, to put clips together, to cut up audio, and to put together every introduction video that has been seen tonight. It's a lot of time. So if you liked tonight, if you appreciated tonight's ceremony, thank my wife afterward, because without her, it would look very different. When I think of my time as a student athlete at Nelsonville York, one word always comes to mind: blessed. I think back to all the times of my youth, playing sports, hanging out with friends, and growing with them from children to adults. I feel absolutely blessed with who I surrounded myself with. From my church family to my teachers, I feel like we were always given the best advice and guidance no matter what we were facing in our lives. There are many individuals that I'd like to thank tonight, and I'd like to start with my graduating class, the class of 2012. Our class is special for more reasons than one. It's not very often that you see a school our size produce the amount of athletes that we did in one class. From the time we were in youth league to graduation, we put forth some of the best efforts on every athletic surface. Whether it was the gym floor, the wrestling mat, or the football field, we gave it our all, and we gave it all for our school and our community, for them to be proud of. In youth, we dominated as a solid unit. We grew together through middle school, adapting to faster gameplay and bigger and stronger opponents. And in high school, we put everything together and played for not ourselves, but one another. I think of the term iron sharpens iron when I think about my class. And that was displayed mainly on the football field. Because by the time that we were seniors, our offense on offensive practice days would practice against our scout team, and it wasn't a typical scout team. We practiced against 9 of our starters on defense every single offensive practice, and typically every single day, because we'd always hit offense a couple times. I had to go up against Dakota Hook and Caleb Covert, who were 2 of our 4 starting linebackers. Jacob Kuhn, Neil Polley, and Zach Mays lived in our backfield, coming from the defensive line. And Jacob Perkins, Garrison Breeze, Mark Carter, and Austin North terrorized our secondary, and I could hardly get a pass off. I played against tougher defenses in practice than I would on Friday nights, and that made us better as a unit. Dakota was a first-team All-State linebacker. Him and Caleb both together that season had 322 tackles together in just one year. Jacob Perkins and Garrison Breeze combined for 14 interceptions. 15 if you include the 2-point conversion that Coach Klein likes to say doesn't count. And last but not least, my offensive line, like any good quarterback should. Kyle Moore, Tucker Johnson, Isaiah Mello, Austin McCullough, Isaac Andrews, and the countless names that were able to play up in front of me. You kept me as safe and as clean as possible. So I thank you for that. In fact, my junior year, we were playing baseball at Wellston, and I was on second base, and the shortstop came up to me, and he said, "Aren't you the quarterback?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." And he goes, "Man, we got yelled at so much after we played you guys, and it was all because of you." And I sat there, and I was like, I mean, I had an okay game, I think. Like, you know, I distributed the ball where I needed to. And I was like, "Why?" And he goes, "Because your jersey was bright white. It was not even close to being dirty." And I said, "Yeah, well, I have a pretty great offensive line." So that's a story that always sticks with me whenever I think about those guys up front. When we were growing up, if we weren't playing sports, we were usually hanging out together. And a lot of that time, we ended up at the house of none other than Steve and Debbie Cox. Steve, Debbie, I'm sorry. But on a positive note, you opened up your house to us and made us feel welcome and at home every day. You're great role models to so many, and I thank you both for that. I also want to thank Casey Cox, Caleb Covert, Taylor Davis, Thomas McLaughlin, Jacob Addis, Stephanie Hunter, Garrison Breeze, and Dustin Young. That's a group that kept me sane for my 4 years through high school. They always pushed me to be my best, whether it was in the community, on the field, or in the classroom. To my baseball coaches, Wayne Dickin, Ben Roby, and Steve Cox, I'd like to thank you for my bad knees. I mean, trusting me behind the plate, at the plate, and on the mound. Baseball is an incredible game, and you guys taught with a passion that made us love the game just as much as you did. I want to thank Coach Klein for being the disciplined and fiery coach that I needed in the winter months, keeping me determined to get better every day, and for the entire football staff under Coach Boston Jr.'s tutelage. I would not be the person I am today without your guidance at one point or another in my life. I'd also like to thank Jason Mead. Steve said it earlier. My sophomore year, we were looking for a kicker, and I didn't play defense, so Jason asked if I wanted to try. So he took me over, showed me the steps. After 10 makes in a row, he said he was going to let me, try out or talk to Coach and let me try out. In my first kick, I fell completely on my butt in front of Coach Boston, so that was terrifying. But 3 days later, we beat Trimble 7-6. So from all the Buckeyes, especially this week, thank you, Jason Mead. Finally, I'd like to thank my family. From my grandparents and aunts and uncles driving long distances to watch me play, or my sisters being drug along to every game, it meant the world to me to see you at every single game afterward. I talked earlier about how tough it is to be a coach's wife. My mother was not only a coach's wife, but the wife of a coach that decided to take over a program and run it for 25 years. And she was not only there for support, but she helped run the ship. There were multiple trips to laundromats, Sam's Club, and even just trips over town day of the game to grab something. Not too long after taking over the program, she added something even more difficult, taking care of me. I grew up at Polley Field. I saw the transformation from old bleachers to when they were torn down. I saw the cables and posts removed from the fencing, for fencing, and the construction of locker rooms and the concession stand. But what I saw most was the strongest work ethic, dedication, and selflessness I've ever seen in my life. My father, Eric Dean, may be one of the most unselfish people I've ever met. My father ran the Nelsonville Youth Football Program as a volunteer for over 2 decades, and the only thing he ever expected in return was for every athlete to give it their all. He didn't care about wins, he was there to teach. Growing up, my class seemed to live up to every expectation that he had for us, so much so that we would dominate our competition. We not only brought home wins, we also would bring home hardware. In fact, you'll see it tonight in his video, and at home, the picture hangs on the wall. There's a picture of our class right after our 8th grade football season, and every trophy we won under him is by it. He's probably going to get mad at me for telling this story because I don't think anybody other than our family knows this. But our senior year, WOUB Gridiron Glory was going to do a story on him. They came to our house to film. They did interviews with all my teammates. They were going to talk about his efforts at the youth level and how well we did playing for him. He was so worried that it would cause a distraction, that it would throw a wrench into what we were doing. They were about 95% done, and we asked them to not run the story. He never sought recognition. He just wanted to see others succeed. There are 2 phrases I remember my dad saying when I was young. The first was, perfect practice makes perfect. Like I said, he didn't care about wins. He wanted our effort. He wanted our ability to try our hardest. He wanted our perfect attitude and perfect mindset to go into each and every rep. And he believed that once we mastered that and we prepared perfectly, that we would also perform perfectly. The second phrase was always be a student of the game. At first, I thought he was just talking about the game of football, adapting with the way the game changes and trying to stay one step ahead. I realized later that being a student of the game can be applied to anything you dedicate your time to. It could be the game of football, coaching, teaching, or more importantly, life. And he has taught me more about life than he could ever imagine. I interviewed Bob Young and Ed Keating earlier about Coach Cole. And they talked about how much they respected him and how they tried to emulate him and model themselves after him. Everything I do and everything I am is because of my father. He's taught me how to be a good leader, a good teacher, a good coach, and a good role model. He's taught me how to be a good husband and a good father. It's because of him why I have the passion I do for Nelsonville York football, and why I'll continue to be perfect in all of my practices in life. Once again, thank you for everyone who's had an impact on my life in one way or another. I truly am very blessed. Thank you.
In each of our lives, our past, of course, shapes our present. And that's certainly the case of the schools that ultimately became the Nelsonville York School System. The Buchtel Bruins, Murray City Miners, Buchtel York Bruins, Carbon Hill Bulldogs, and Nelsonville Greyhounds. They make up the Buckeyes we know today. We induct one of those former Greyhounds tonight, the late Wayne Dixon, as one of our legacy members. Wayne was a 3-sport athlete for the Red and Gray, collecting 9 varsity letters in his time, 3 apiece in football, basketball, and track and field. On the football field, Wayne helped the Greyhounds to some of their best seasons in school history. In his senior year, he was named All-SEOAL, along with teammates and fellow Hall of Famers Ed Keating and Bob Young. Wayne would lead the Greyhounds in receiving that season as their tight end. On the basketball court, Wayne was a key part of the Greyhounds' 4th and final SEOAL championship in the 56-57 season. Dixon would average 14.5 points per game that season, with a notable performance coming against Athens when he dropped 30 on the Bulldogs. For his career, Wayne averaged 14.2 points per game and was a first-team All-SEOAL performer. Like so many of our Hall of Famers, though, Wayne's accomplishments encompass more than one sport. Track and field may have been his best. Running the high hurdles, the 440-yard dash, and also performing the high jump and long jump for the Greyhounds, Wayne put on a spectacle, meet after meet. As a junior, he qualified for the Ohio State Track and Field Championships to compete in the high jump, an unheard of accomplishment from this little school. As a senior in 1957, Wayne continued his championship form, dominating area runners in the 120 high hurdles as well as the 440-yard dash and every other event he competed in. His efforts would lead him into the district track and field championships, and he would walk out as a 3-time district champion, winning first place in the broad jump, the 440-yard dash, and the high jump. That Greyhound team would win the district championship that year, with only 2 athletes competing, Wayne Dixon and fellow Hall of Famer Bob Young. Those were the 2 athletes. And that accomplishment is forever etched in the Ohio State record books. During that meet, Dixon won the broad jump, 440-yard dash, while placing 3rd in the 120-yard high hurdles. He tied for 1st in the high jump with the aforementioned Bob Young, who added points to their total in the 120 and 180-yard hurdle events. Wayne's performance would send him once again onto the Ohio State Track and Field Championships. He ended his Greyhound track and field career as a 2-time SEOAL champion, 4-time high point scorer, 3-time district champion, and 5-time state qualifier. He would go on to continue his academic and athletic career at Miami University.
Wayne was one of those guys that he loved all the sports. He really took part in them. He did his best. He was always kind of one of the leaders, convincing some of the other kids, to come out and play.
Wayne had a lot of athletic ability. He just had a different motor than most people. He was like a car that had a lot more acceleration than it ever had to use.
Our junior and senior year, he was a catcher on the baseball team, and I was a pitcher. Of course, we played basketball. We won the league in basketball, and he and I and, the whole first team was all league. I remember when we would have baseball practice after school, he and I would jog down the tracks down to football. We'd just go down there and practice track. And of course, when we were going through school, we were always at practice, and we would play basketball down there at the swimming pool, even in the winter, playing outside in the cold.
We hung out together, and I kept him in line as best I could. I think that him being a good athlete, we kind of leaned on each other.
He was always pushing people to do better, and he was always kind of the leader. He would show us how to do something, and he would outrun you, and you try to catch him, and he was always pushing people. He always wanted to win.
Bob and Wayne, they just were outstanding athletes. He and Bob Young could go and win track meets, triangular track meets. They just could win every event they were in. The only time they got second place was when they both ran the same race. One of them would finish a little bit behind the other. That's how good they were. He was running an event down at OU. I heard the gun go off, and there was a hesitation, and all of a sudden, Wayne come flying out behind that hedge down there at OU, and there wasn't anybody around him, I like, well, what did he do, jump the gun or what, Finally, the rest of the runners came out behind him. That was the kind of athlete he was, He
was always chasing after something better. Well, I think it was just his desire. He had an awful lot of natural talent. It came easy to him, shooting baskets, catching footballs. He was a really good catcher in baseball. He could stop about anything. I would say competitive. He was always fighting and taking part in anything that was competitive. He was always kind of a leader, charging it out, come on, we can do it.
Because he could do anything he wanted. He could run track, play basketball, and, he fiddled around football, and he was really good. He was just an athlete.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present for induction into the Nelsonville York Athletic Hall of Fame, the late Mr. Wayne Dixon. Accepting the award from Mr. Dixon this evening is his granddaughter, NY graduate, Miss Tori Campbell.
Hello, as Steve said, I'm Tori, and I'm his granddaughter. I have the honor of speaking on his behalf. First off, I wanted to express a huge thank you to the Alumni Association for the induction as well as the nomination. Instead of standing here and recounting all the records that we just heard, I wanted to say a few words about how important community and the alumni are to our athletes. My grandpa didn't talk too much about himself or his experiences. Getting information out of a Dixon is almost as bad as pulling teeth. So, of course, I knew Grandpa, the grandpa that could fix nearly anything, the grandpa that always took me on tractor rides, and man, if he didn't have a song lyric that fit every situation. I'm not here to talk about Grandpa, though. We're here to talk about Wayne, the athlete, the high schooler, and eventually the collegiate basketball player. I may not have gotten the information firsthand, but I got to know that version of Wayne in my favorite way, through stories from those who knew and loved him. I grew up on stories of a young Wayne talking about walking to practice the some odd many miles just to be sure that he could play, the Wayne who didn't always have new shoes to play in, and the Wayne who surely didn't do it all by himself. When we did get him to talk about his past, there were a few people in particular that seemed to have played a big part, one of which was his middle school basketball coach, Coach Cole. Talent will only get you so far, and having the right guidance and people by your side is what gets you where you want to go. Even when that guidance had to take the form of Coach Cole completely stopping practice to prove to a young Wayne that he in fact could not outrun the passing the ball, it took multiple times for him to prove the point that passing it was faster than him running. Of course, coaches are only part of the system necessary to support an athlete, but behind even the coaches lies the true unsung hero, the community itself. Within the inspiration and support from our athletic community, Wayne was able to go on to be one of the first of our family to attend college. He attended Miami University, and it was an athletic scholarship that not only allowed him the opportunity to continue playing a sport that he loved, but also to gain some of that much needed experience away from home in the process. He went on to play for 2 years before later joining the military, and that may have been the end to his official participation in sports, but surely it wasn't an end to all the things that sports had shaped in the process. Athletics has been a huge part of my family through all of our generations. Wayne is preceded in his Hall of Fame induction by his daughter, my mother, Amy Dixon, who was a member of the original class of inductees back in 2017. He inspired her, they inspire me, and I hope that they can continue to inspire both current and future generations of high school athletes to reach higher. Thank you again to our fantastic community and the Alumni Association for this honor. Thank you.
Another thing we quickly recognized when we began the Hall of Fame back in 2017 was the difficulty identifying and honoring superior athletes who starred in some of the less glamorous positions of sport that don't often garner the attention or earn the accolades of the most glamorous positions. Football lineman is one of those areas, most specifically offensive lineman. And in those cases, we've leaned on coaches' views and rankings, along with insight of some of those they've opened holes for or protected. Our next inductee did some of his best work at that unsung position. Darrow Tolliver is a 1983 Nelsonville York graduate. In his time at NY, Darrow was an integral part of the most successful football team to ever play for the brown, white, and orange. Along with being part of one of the most heralded field event duos in Buckeye history, he lettered 3 years apiece in both football and track and field. In the spring, Tolliver would put his size and strength on display as he threw shot put and discus for the Buckeye track and field team, along with current Hall of Famer Greg Jones. Jones and Tolliver's best competition was not during events. It was during practice, and it was against each other. A multiple-time regional qualifier, Tolliver's throw of 51.6 at the time, the second longest in school history, remains fifth to this day. His greatest achievement as a Buckeye, though, may have gone unnoticed to the average fan, but not his coaches and teammates. It was on the gridiron where Tolliver was to put his strength and power on display as he helped Nelsonville York to their first 2 undefeated seasons in school history, 2 TVC championships, 2 regional championships, and finally, the 1981 Division IV OHSAA state championship. The 1981 and 1982 football teams have been talked about as legends, heroes, and the greatest in Buckeye history. And while those teams had some phenomenal talent, throwing and carrying the ball with the likes of Hall of Famers Pete Taggart, Brad Woodson, Mike Bishop, Trent Gallatin, and many others, they most definitely would not have had the same success without the Hogs up front, creating truck-sized holes for them to run through. Darrow Tolliver would be considered boss hog of that group. As a junior, Tolliver helped anchor the offensive and defensive lines for the state champs. One only has to look at the success of the backfield to know how important Tolliver was. Woodson, 414 yards, 27 TDs. Bishop, 1,020 yards, 7 TDs. Gallatin, 441 yards and 7 TDs, along with protecting and giving time to Nelsonville York's most immobile quarterback ever, Tom Taggart. I wish he was here tonight. You're second, Nate. Taggart chipped in with 1,600 yards of his own throughout the air. Notice how the stats I read were of other players. Those stats were made possible through the efforts of one Darrow Tolliver. Tolliver is known to many from that area and in Buckeye lore as being on the short list of the best offensive linemen to ever play for the Nelsonville York Buckeyes. As a defensive tackle, linebackers Woodson and Mays would tell you Tolliver's ability to take on 2 or sometimes 3 offensive linemen on his own contributed mightily to their incredible tackle numbers. In his junior year, Darrow was named first team All-TVC and All-District. He followed that up his senior year with another first team All-Team selection, All-TVC selection, a first team All-District selection, and finally, All-State recognition. He was also named to the 1980s All-Decade football team as both a first team offensive and defensive tackle. And he made certain that immobile quarterback we talked about earlier finished each game with a nice clean uniform.
Well, yeah, we grew up. We all hung out together. Darrow was a unique guy. Of course, we called him Duck, and I would argue that he was probably our best offensive lineman the years that we played.
He was just patch of hell. He was 6'3", 260 pounds, could run. Was just an incredible lineman. He was really integral part of our 81 team on the offensive and defensive line. Just a phenomenal player.
Force. He's a force. That's the only thing I can think of. He's just a force. I mean, anybody played with him could just tell you. It's not like he tried to win every sprint we ever ran or anything like that. When you put him on the football field to play, he loved hitting people. He just loved to hit people.
He played both probably equally as well, but on the offensive side is where it affected me, and he did a nice job on the offensive side. But he was an integral part of our team. I mean, he was solid on the offensive and defensive line. Every night you could depend on him. He played. He didn't have injuries. He didn't miss. He was on the field all the time. I mean, you just count on him all the time, and he was pretty dominant in his position.
I don't think there's a single school in the state of Ohio that had 2 50-foot shot putters when we threw. So we were, and I said this, we were kind of the show. So he was a really good thrower, but as a football player, he was definitely a tough person.
We were playing in Benton County my senior year, and I got hit. And Tolliver came back and asked me, help me up, asked me the number, and I gave him the number of the player, and he ripped the offensive line and said he won't be back in the rest of the night. And he wasn't back in the rest of the night. And in fact, the next series or two later, he ended up knocking him out of the game.
But he was a great offensive player, great defensive player. As I said, I think he was one of our best, definitely the best offensive linemen we had. And tough, super tough. If you put him in today's society, you know, where we know a whole lot more and a lot more training than we used to, he definitely would have been a beast. And you got to remember, we blocked back in the day where you had to chicken wing everyone. You weren't allowed to touch him, which would have been a lot more fun if he could have done that.
He was just a strong guy and really big. And he played beside Mays, and those guys would give the defensive lineman the play. They'd tell him where the ball was going. The ball's going over there this time, and you could see the guy. He just kind of relaxed, and then they'd tell him it was coming to him. It's coming right here. He would just hang his head like, oh, no, I'm going to get rolled here.
He was a lot of fun. He was a great athlete. You know, when you start thinking about people who you think are great athletes, who may not have got the notoriety at the state level that you think they should, he's definitely one of them. Darrow definitely. He definitely deserves it because he definitely was. I'd put him against anybody we've had come through Nelsonville.
When he set his mind to something on the football field, there wasn't too many people could stop him.
Definitely a good man, a good athlete. He was a great teammate. Can't say that enough. I mean, I was around a lot of good teammates, but he was definitely a good one.
I just want to congratulate him, and it's an honor, you know, well deserved, and he's very deserving of the award. I'm just proud of him, and I appreciate all the things he did for me on the football field.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present for induction into the Nelsonville York High School Athletic Hall of Fame, Mr. Darrow Duck Tolliver. You're not coming up? Congratulations, buddy. Please come over here and let us get your picture, all right? Or afterwards, we'll be fine. Our next inductee is one of two this evening from the graduating class of 2013. In 4 years as a Buckeye, Zach Mays earned 2 varsity letters in football and 4 in wrestling. Zach was a member of some of the best wrestling teams, not only in Nelsonville York history, but all of southeastern Ohio and the state of Ohio. The name Mays is synonymous with linebacking and defensive line play here at Nelsonville York, and Zach Mays carried on that tradition in fine fashion. As a junior, Zach took to the field as a nose guard, linebacker, and defensive end wherever Coach Boston needed him. As a senior, he took exclusive possession of the heralded Buckeye middle linebacker slot. With a great knack for finding the football, he led the team in tackles with 83, 26 of them being solo, and added 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery, and 1 sack to go along with his yearly total. At the end of his senior year, Zach would be named first team All-TVC and All-District. On the wrestling mat, Mays was a force from his freshman year on. In the first year, he would win the TVC championship in his weight class as well as the sectional championship before falling at districts due to a broken leg, one he had gamely wrestled on for 2 matches prior to that meet, finally falling short of a berth of the state tournament by 1 match. In his sophomore season, Zach would go on to win the TVC again, win a sectional championship, and end up runner-up in the district tournament, qualifying him for his first state meet. As a junior, Mays made a name for himself as one of the best wrestlers in the state of Ohio, winning an amazing 46 matches going into the state meet. By the time the state meet came around, he'd already won his third consecutive TVC title, sectional championship, and was also district champion. One of 4 #1 regional seeds going into the state meet in the 170-pound division, Zach would have a weekend like no other, pinning his first-round opponent, then defeating his second-round opponent by a score of 11-5, and setting up matches with the other #1 seeds in his weight class. Facing fellow #1 seed Travis Linton of Rootstown, who came in at 45-2, Mays would prevail by a 4-3 score and advance to the state finals. In that state championship match, Zach squared off with another #1 seed, Armani Robinson from Jamestown, Greenview. Mays would do something quite rare in the championship matches, pinning Robinson in the second period and becoming the 3rd state champion in Nelsonville York history, joining his coach, Matt Yinger, and teammate Thomas McLaughlin, who had just won his state championship on the same mat an hour earlier. Things were much of the same for Mays as a senior. He would win his 4th TVC championship, sectional championship, and was once again district champion, going into the state meet with a 49-3 record, falling just short of Nelsonville York's only 2-time state championship. Zach would finish in 3rd place, pinning Amanda Clear Creek's Jason Tipton in his final match as a Buckeye. Zach Mays was part of 3 sectional championship teams, 3 district championship teams, as well as the district runner-up team. He was a key contributor to a team that was ranked #1 in the state of Ohio during the season, and he placed 4th, and the team placed 4th in the state tournament. Zach Mays finished his wrestling career with 190 wins and 25 losses. Those 190 wins were, and still are, the most wins by a Buckeye wrestler in school history.
Growing up wrestling, he always set the bar for me. He was like a big bully in wrestling in a good way. He was like such a juggernaut to where it took my like style of wrestling, honestly, ever since we were even a kid. I was like more of a smooth wrestler, but he brought the bruteness out of me.
From the start, he was a natural leader. He was quiet, but his presence was felt every single time we stepped on the mat. I don't know anybody that was more humble. Their accolades, it was pretty rare for Zach to show emotion, but when he did, you knew it was worth showing.
Training together, he made me tough, and then when it came to competing together, he did what any big brother should do, kind of lead the way.
My junior year, his sophomore year, we became drilling partners and workout partners both during wrestling season and then in the off season. Zach worked me over every single day. For me to get a win was few and far between. Beating Zach in practice was always a goal of mine, and the opportunity didn't come very often. However, when it did come, he made me pay for it.
My freshman year was the funnest year I had, actually, just because I got to be with that whole team. And obviously all the seniors at the time, you know, you got McLaughlin, you got the Hooks, Carl, just a bunch of studs around. I loved that year more than anything. So yeah, Zach was a big leader in that year for us. And when he was a senior, I was a sophomore. It was just fun having him on the team, like a returning state champ. You don't have too many of those in high school. So we had him on our team going everywhere, and he was my brother also. So it just added more oomph to us whenever we were at any tournament.
People knew that like when Nelsonville York came to a tournament and they saw Zach May's name on their bracket, that it was going to be a dogfight and it wasn't going to be an easy tournament for whoever else was on the other side. We knew that if we were in a position to where a couple of points in a dual meet or in a tournament were going to make the difference between winning or losing, we could always count on Zach to come away with big points.
He put in a lot of work, and there's a reason why he was like one of the most annoying people in the state of Ohio actually to wrestle against. Like, you know, he wasn't a fun opponent.
One of the best wrestlers I had known personally, and someone that I always looked up to. He is a mentor. Zach knew that there was a purpose behind everything we did. He was a year behind me in school, but he was always teaching me new things. Like, he had this wealth of knowledge that he wasn't just holding on to for himself. Like, He was willing to give everything he had, mentally, physically, to those around him, and help develop his peers and those below him and above him.
He was really fun to watch. He did have a lot of work ethic. He's just a natural beast, a natural juggernaut. He doesn't stop. My brother's a much more natural beast.
Knowing my drilling partner, my practice partner, was the best in the state was a pretty cool feeling for me, because I knew that I was going to get the best. Day in and day out, I was getting to work with the best in the state. Watching Zach finish off at his junior season, #1 in the state, it was surreal. Him and Thomas both deserved that.
I'm just proud of him. He's very deserving of this reward or being in this group of people. He's a natural born leader, and he's someone who actively led too.
Yeah, I'm proud of him. I think he's very deserving. I put a lot of my thanks in Zach helping develop who I am today. So I just appreciate everything that he's done for me and all that he's done for Nelsonville York and the sport of wrestling in our area.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present for induction into the Nelsonville York Athletic Hall of Fame, Mr. Zach Mays.
Well, if you know me, not a lot for words. And watching that match, I just know in the back of my mom's head that she was rooting for me to win, even though she's watched it 2 to 3 times more than I have. There's a lot of people I'd like to thank, especially my dad, grandpa, mother. Through my freshman year, I couldn't drive. Grandpa was always there to give me a ride. And through my senior year, he was always at practice. All the times I was driving with my dad to Columbus, after my normal practice, get cleaned up, go to another practice. Routine, 2 to 3 nights a week. Through the summers, I'd be in camps 3 to 7 days at a time. Accumulated up to 9 hours of just wrestling a day. Coach Inger, always ready to be in my face if I was messing up, or there to congratulate and hug me and shake my hand if I won. There's a lot of injuries to do with wrestling. It's a common thing. There's one in particular that kind of wasn't expecting. We were at our Brecksville tournament, and Coach thought it was a good idea to drill with me. And we were just warming up, kind of hit a move he wasn't expecting. His foot was planted, his body went without it. I just remember him grabbing me. I didn't know what was wrong. I thought he was just messing with me. And he couldn't get up. He kind of snuck off for a little while. He didn't want us to know anything had happened. Turns out I broke his leg. And he will, to this day, blame me that he can't run as fast as he could. I want to thank everyone for being here. Everyone involving, especially Nate, texting me everything, all the updates and everything. It's an honor to be here. And I will be back in a couple of years for my brother to be in here, hopefully. And thanks, everyone.
When you look in our bylaws under eligibility requirements for admittance into the Nelsonville York Athletic Hall of Fame, you'll see the categories of athlete, coach, team, and contributor. As stated within, a contributor is a person who has made significant contributions to NYHS athletics. This year, that person is 1986 Nelsonville York graduate Eric Dean. But that's not the whole story. He also fits under the athlete, coach, and team category to boot. With 32 years of coaching experience at various levels for the Buckeyes, Eric Dean is an integral part of our athletic programs, particularly our football program. He did serve as head coach for the Buckeyes softball team for 4 years, and he has also led or assisted multiple youth league teams as his children and their friends grew up. However, it's on the football field where his legacy truly shines. He has not only influenced the lives of hundreds of individuals, but also helped preserve and strengthen the tradition of Nelsonville York Buckeye football. His impact on our youth is evident in the success of our high school program. From 1990 to 2008, some of our best athletes in our high school program came game ready after spending their formative years in his Buckeye youth program. His focus on fundamentals and game knowledge over winning ensured our pipeline to the next level was solid and ready. Of course, his focus on those fundamentals and game knowledge normally produced winning teams, many winning teams. Whether it was winning Youth League Super Bowl championships, demonstrating dominance at the Nelsonville or the National Youth Football Championships in Daytona Beach, or securing TVC championships for our Nelsonville York Buckeyes, one thing was certain: every player felt confident that Coach Dean had equipped them with the necessary skills for success. As the offensive coordinator for Nelsonville York High School, Coach Dean implemented a balanced offensive strategy that utilized each player's specific skill set. In 2011, the Buckeye offense averaged nearly 400 yards per game, setting a school record for points scored in a season and points per game. That remarkable season remains the only one in Buckeye history where a team scored over 400 points. The following year, the team nearly replicated that feat under Coach Dean's guidance, amassing 392 points. In 2011, the team also witnessed their first ever 2,000-yard passing quarterback. His son, sitting beside me right here, Nathan, by the way. While tailback Hall of Famer Dustin Young achieved over 1,800 yards and scored 27 touchdowns in that balanced offense. Additionally, 2 receivers each surpassed 500 yards, marking the first time in school history that had happened. When you think of Eric Dean, you think of the passion he has to work with athletes and teaching them about the game of football. Almost every athlete to play for Nelsonville York from the 1990s until today learned the game from Coach Eric Dean. Let me repeat that. Let me back that up again. Almost every athlete to play for Nelsonville York football from the 1990s until today learned the game from Coach Eric Dean. Coach Dean has been a pivotal member of the Nelsonville York football program, shaping not only athletes but young men. And in the words of one of his former players, when you hear Nelsonville York football, one of the first names you think of is Coach Dean. Eric Dean, though, is more than just a football coach. He's a pillar of our community. His countless hours donated to our youth have gone beyond coaching and included life lessons in leadership, accountability, and the value of hard work. His deep knowledge of the game could show his players how to pick apart a defense and when and why to call a certain play. His love for his players and hopes for their futures taught them an immeasurable amount about how to live their lives. As I mentioned previously, Eric Dean goes into our Hall of Fame as a contributor. As you can see, his contributions would lend themselves to a place in our hall as a coach. I might add that he quarterbacked our Buckeyes during his 4 years in high school, part of that famed Dean family quarterbacking tree. And his accomplishments on the field, were we to list them, would lend themselves to inclusion as an athlete. In addition, the teams he played on and coached could also take a place in our hall. So tonight, I would call Eric Dean our first 4-category member of the Nelsonville York Athletic Hall of Fame.
You think of City League football, and Coach Dean's the first guy that pops into your mind. He was involved in City League football for 20 plus years.
He had built the Nelsonville program into the elite program that it is today. I had a lot of good memories with Eric. We ran together on the field, off the field. He's a born leader. I started coaching right out of high school, and Kim Rosser and Kurt Gail would approach me and said, would you be interested in taking this program over? We're going to move up. I said, I have a friend that just moved back into town, and I'll talk to him about it. And there was no looking back. Within 3 or 4 years, everybody had all new equipment. He had set up fundraisers. He took the bull by the horns. And he never looked back.
In addition to that, the bleachers, anything, the scoreboard, I know that he was heavily involved in not only just growing young men and players, but in addition to that, how can we make our facilities better? Remember countless times of him, painting the field and putting the numbers out. So it wasn't just the coaching aspect, he really was the staple that made most everything go round.
He was very well organized. We made it fun for the kids to learn, and Eric was a great leader. He's a great leader with the kids because they looked up to him. He put a lot of time and effort in with the kids, not only at the youth level, but also at the high school level and the junior high level. He's always proven him that he's there for the kids and that he's there to teach.
I think that's something that makes Nelsonville football unique, is that everything focused and started on Biddy Leg. Kids were not taught something different than what they were taught in high school.
Eric's a book of knowledge on football and a lot of different aspects of life. Just a really knowledgeable person.
It wasn't until later on that I realized when we played for the love of the game, but I had absolutely no idea just how much he understands the game.
3 or 4 steps ahead of the other coach as far as play calling. It wasn't, what am I going to call next? It was, okay, this is what I've got set up. And it worked every time.
I've not met somebody else with his ability and his knowledge and able to articulate and to have kids execute and understand the game the way that he does.
Everybody knows that the youth is where the high school comes from. It's these kids coming up from the youth that build the programs that our high schools have. And Eric, like I said, he had a large impact.
I think he has just as much blood, sweat, and tears as what Coach Dave Boston did and what he meant to Nelsonville football.
Dedicated, no doubt about it. And it doesn't matter whether you've got a personal relationship. He's one of those guys that, he's all in it from the get-go. He's not going to do anything halfway. Just an absolute staple to that program. He's a lifetime learner as it comes to football, and just an overall a great human being.
His impact to the community, Eric, was a positive. And it was all about just sharing his knowledge of the game. And I believe that's why the program is where it's at today.
I think Eric going into the Hall of Fame is a big deal, and I think it's well deserved.
He's been a great friend, somebody you can turn to, and I think he's really deserving of this. I think it's awesome. Well, Eric, there's nobody that deserves it more than you. We've had a lot of great times. Had a lot of great times on and off the field, man, and it's well deserving. Congratulations.
Absolutely well-deserved honor to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, and can't tell him enough of what he has meant to our community and all of us, growing up with Nelsonville York football.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present for induction into the Nelsonville York Athletic Hall of Fame, Coach Eric Dean.
Wow, well, the good thing is I am the last one. So first of all, and good evening, and thank you for everyone showing up tonight. And to say thank you to the Hall of Fame committee for this amazing honor. To say that I'm honored and humbled would be an understatement, because I am extremely, extremely honored and humbled to be part of the Nelsonville York Hall of Fame. You know, we spoke about passion. I heard the word passion in what I do. And to be inducted to be as a contributor, because I love to coach the game of football and teach the game of football. And, you know, it's the passion that I was taught. And you know, when I was growing up, when I got in high school, and I realized that, you know, my actions had consequences. You know, there was two people that I feared. Not feared for safety, but I feared because I never wanted to let them down. I didn't want to disappoint them. One was my dad, and one was Coach Boston Sr. You know, my dad taught me about commitment. He never made us play sports. He never said you had to play football, baseball, basketball. He never said that. But he did say once we started, we didn't quit. We were committed to our team. We didn't miss practices. We were committed to working hard, and we were committed to our coach. And, you know, you think that, you know, that was easy, and it really was. I mean, because, you know, I loved athletics. You know, I only had to be reminded once, only once. You know, I was a senior. I'm helping at down at the city park, and I'm officiating, umpiring baseball games. And I just got done with the first game. And the second game, I'm in like the first inning, and it's a break. You know, they're switching innings, and I look around and I go, oh, well, there's my dad. I bet he's coming down to watch me umpire. So here he comes down, and he walks up to me, and he goes, what are you doing? I said, umpiring baseball games. He goes, it's Tuesday night. What are you supposed to be doing? And I knew that answer. I knew the answer. And he finally said, are you an umpire or are you a football player? And I knew that answer too. I mean, it was simple. But I also just committed to do all these baseball games. So thankfully, I didn't have to answer it, because he said, well, you've already missed football workouts, which was every Tuesday and Thursday. So finish working out, or finish your games and get home. Well, I didn't go home. After that game, I went to Coach Boston's house, and I apologized for missing practice, or, you know, football workouts. And then I went home, walk in, and Dad's sitting on the couch in the front room, and he's never there. He's always in this basement watching TV, or in his room in the basement working. He goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm going to feed the dogs. He said, okay. And he goes, then what are you going to do? I say, well, I'm going to eat dinner. Then what are you going to do? I'm going to probably go to bed. He goes, well, you know there's a set of weights in the basement. I said, well, I'm going to go work out in the basement. And he goes, that's what I thought you said. And he got up, and he went in and went to bed. And I went to the basement, and I worked out. Because I learned that when you commit to something, you commit to it. The next person, Dave Boston Sr., was a person that taught me about pride. First time, you know, I've heard it before, but I never really understood it when I was growing up. You know, he was a leader of young men. He was a coach that taught life lessons. He was strict, disciplined. He had a passion for winning. And, you know, he also was a perfectionist. Those, you know, that played for him understood that if it took 30 minutes to run pitch 18 and get it right, we were running pitch 18 30 minutes until it was right. But at the same time, he was very loyal to his community, his school, and his players. Caring, giving to his players. He was a very proud man, of his football team, his coaching staff. He was very proud of what they would do. He always wanted them to be more successful in being an adult than being on the football field. But he also had a really wicked sense of humor. And, to me, I was so excited to become a high school football player. I was still a little bit mad at my mom and dad because if they'd have started me a year earlier, I could have won a state championship. So, I'm here. I'm just so excited because, to me, Coach Boston Sr. was like, Tom Landry. He was like Don Shula. He was like a superhero. I was like, the first day of practice, it was like Christmas morning to me because I wanted to hurry up and get there. We'd always, every day before practice, we met in Coach Smather's room, and he would tell us, go in there. We're doing roll call. So I'm excited. I'm so excited. I'm getting in there, and he's going through the names, and everybody's yelling here, and he gets to Davis, and Davis says here. And then I hear the word Deem. And everybody looks around, they're like, there's no Deem here. So he goes through the roll call. Everybody's name gets called. He goes, did everybody's name get called? And I raised my hand. I said, Coach, you missed my name. He goes, I called your name. I said, no, you didn't. He goes, I called your name. I said Deem. You just weren't paying attention. And I said, Coach, my name's Dean. He said, that's what I said. I said Deem. No, I said Dean, D-E-A-N. He said, son, I know how to spell. He goes, it's Deem, right? And he looks down at his paper and he's smiling. And I said, yeah, Coach, it's Deem. And for 4 years, my last name was Deem. Even though it was D-E-A-N, it was Deem. And it was just his little bit of humor. And 25 years later, a retired Coach Boston Sr. and myself now are helping Coach Boston Jr. coach. And we're running plays, and I'm calling plays, and all of a sudden, he's sitting behind us on the golf cart, and all the kids are around him because they love to be around him. And he was, I heard him yell, Dean, you need to carry out your fakes. And of course, he was yelling at Nathan because he was a stickler about carrying out fakes. So we get back in the huddle, and I tell Nathan, and he goes back up and runs another play, and I go back to Coach Boston, and I said, hey, why do you call him Dean? He goes, well, that's his name. I go, well, you called me Dean for 4 years. He said, no, I didn't. I said, Coach, you called me Dean for 4 years. And he goes, Coach, I did not call you Dean. He goes, I wouldn't do that to you. And I said, I'm telling you. And then he goes, hey, I'm telling you I didn't do it. And so I'm like, well, I'm not going to argue. So as I turn around to walk back to call another play, I hear him giggling. Damn, I called him Dean for 4 years. I thought he forgot. And he gave me my first coaching job right out of school. In 1986, he asked me to coach, and I was going to Hocking College. I wasn't really, saying into coaching. I just did it for Coach Boston, and when I moved away after graduation, and I came back, and as Coach Jolly said in the film, he came up to me and said, hey, you need help, come down and coach youth. And I said, all right, and so I went down and I started coaching youth. And that first year I was just hooked. I just thought it was awesome to see these kids do the things that we did when we were in high school. And it was just, to me, it was just the best thing. And about a year later, Kim Rosser and Kurt Gail sitting in the back, Charlie Altier, and I believe Jeff Carter were said, hey, we're retiring. Do you want to take over the program? And of course I was like, well, absolutely. I'll take this program over. And so Kim, which ran the program, he called me to the house, and I go up to his house, and I'm sitting on his couch, and he's in his recliner, and he's handing me everything, and he goes, now, here's all the books and everything, and he goes, the only advice I'm going to give you is remember, the parents are the foundation of our program, and the kids make our program. And I looked at him, he goes, do you understand what I'm saying? I'm saying that the foundation of our program is our parents, but our kids make the program. And I, of course, said, yeah, I completely understand. About 3 weeks later, I call him. I'm like, hey, I got a problem, man. I got to come up. Can I come up and talk to you? He said, yeah. So I go up and I sit back on that same couch. He's on his chair. He goes, what's wrong? I said, man, you never told me about parents. And he goes, what about them? I said, well, you just told me about the kids. He goes, this is what I'm going to tell you, Eric. He goes, I'm going to give you some advice. Parents are the foundation of our program. The kids are our program. And I kept looking, I was like, no, I was like wanting advice. And he once again said that. The parents are the foundation, and the kids are our program. And at that point, you know, it was passing the torch to me, and he's basically saying, you will figure it out. And, you know, I was a young man, and I figured it out. It took me a while, but I figured it out. But now I got this great responsibility of not only coaching, but how to run a program. You know, where do I go? They've already done an excellent job. We got to make it even better. So, you know, Coach Jolly and myself, we surrounded ourselves with great people with passion, with, like he said, the passion of football. And it looked good. Things were looking good. You know, our kids were loving it. They were showing up to practice. And, you know, yes, we were winning football games, but at that point it wasn't all about the winning. You know, it was about, you know, teaching these kids and letting them understand the Buckeye way of football. And one day, I realized it. We were sitting at practice, and here comes a kid, you know, and he's not a starter, but he, you know, everybody shows up to practice because they love it. This kid's crying. First half an hour, he's still crying, and I'm like, man, he's wants to give it up. And I'll talk to him here in a minute. An hour later, he's still crying. Hour 15 minutes, he's still crying. So I'm getting ready to walk over, and Coach Jolly beats me to him, and he looked down at him, he goes, are you hurt? He goes, no, I'm not hurt. He's just crying, and he goes, we don't cry down here in football. He goes, I'm sorry. He goes, my gosh, you need to cheer up. You act like your dog died. And the poor kid looks up at Coach Jolly, and tears are rolling down his face, and he goes, Coach, my dog got hit by a car on the way to practice, and he's in the back of my dad's truck. And I didn't know what to do. And I go, come on, you can go home. He goes, no, I don't want to miss practice. And at that point, I realized that we were doing things right. We were doing things for the program, and the program was established for the kids. You know, and I did walk him down to his dad, and he fought the whole way, but it was just a time where, you know, it was time to go home for him and take care of his dog. And, you know, and it just that moment, it established that we were doing things right. And, you know, like a lot of the people said in the video, the wins came, but it was always about teaching the fundamentals that were taught to us from Coach McLaughlin and Coach Boston and Coach Richards, you know, and for us younger people, when we were on a team with Duck Tolliver here, you know, he was a senior when I was a freshman. I mean, he was just you idoled these big people, and you watched everything they did, and our young kids just absolutely ate it up. And our program to this day is still going strong. It's still one of the best programs in southeastern Ohio. And over the years, I've been very, very blessed to have coached with so many great people. Two of those people is Coach Kevin Mead, which was one of the smartest offensive individual minds that I've ever met. And he was so detailed about everything. From, you know, it wasn't just about, hey, let's run a play. It was your steps have to be perfect. You know, your stance has to be perfect. And, you know, even his practice script and game script had to be perfect. And so when I coach today, I try to do those same things. Coach Boston Jr. had a lot of the same attributes as his dad and made it easy to coach with. But one thing that he did that I feel that was different than everybody, all the other coaches, is he was probably one of the biggest motivators I've ever seen. I think he won more football games with less talent than any head coach at Nelsonville York. He had the ability to look inside kids that other coaches couldn't, and he was able to bring it out. And people that we questioned, I'm on the high school staff, and I'm like, man, I don't know if you really think he should be playing safety? And he goes, Eric, I'm telling you, he can do it. And he ends up being an all league first team safety and an all district safety, and he could do that all the time. I'd like to thank them for everything that they've brought to me and gave to me on the coaching side. And like I said, I had so many great coaches that have helped me, and I want to thank all of my assistant coaches that have helped me through the way, teaching the Buckeye way of football. I want to thank all the parents that I've been associated with, all the kids from the youth all the way through to the high school. You gain that relationship at the youth, and I was so lucky that some of them I coached at all three levels. So, it's just great young men to get watching them, and I thank them for all the hard work and dedication that they did. But as my son said earlier, if you're going to be a coach and you are committed, like I was, someone else is getting the shaft. And a lot of times, my kids, especially my girls, their dad wasn't at a lot of their events, because I was committed to handle practices and take care of, other events not related to what they were doing. And so I thank them for giving me that opportunity to do that. My son was with me most of the time at that time, so I was bringing him along. But like I said, my daughters, they're the ones that took the brunt of it. Also, my wife. I don't think anyone realizes when you get involved in youth sports, junior high, high school, how much you're away from home. From the time that I started coaching, she probably had no clue in 1991 what she was in for. And I'm still coaching today, and so she's still, doing all the errands that she has to do, and also trying to make sporting events. And she helped run the youth program with me, and that's something that running a football youth program is different than any other event. And I can't thank her enough. I missed weddings, I missed family reunions, and she is the one that went to all those. And unfortunately, she probably deserves more of an award, because anyone that knows my mom and had to get in a car with my mom deserves an award. And especially when you're going to Coshocton and some of them places where there is no straight roads. So in closing, once again, thank you to the Hall of Fame Committee. I am so honored and humbled to accept this. Congratulations to the other members of the Hall of Fame Committee. And like Coach Boston has always said, from the time I met him till his passing was, pain is temporary and pride is forever. Thank you.
As we adjourn the evening with our 2024 Hall of Fame inductees and their representatives, please stand one more time. And now would our prior Hall of Fame inductees join them and stand at this time. Those who are with us this evening. Yeah. Folks, it's been a great event, a great night. We certainly appreciate you being here. Again, if you are inducted tonight, we're going to announce you tomorrow at our football game with Trimble. So be there about 6:20. Meet Coach Klein at the goalpost nearest the high school. Again, a great evening, great meal, and it's so glad to see you all again. and we'll do it again next year. Thanks for coming, everyone.